When I see my birthday, it always strikes me. Like I got a text earlier, right on that time that it would be my birthday, and it strikes me every time. But it's not actually when I see my birthday, it just happens. It's 11, it's 11:11 twice per day. So I used to see it a lot,
Buster.
but I thought up again.
I have enough confidence in the things that I know. I have enough wisdom to see the logic will be shown. I got one chance to show you what I got. I got one chance to show I'm confident or not. Self-evident reason, deductions and conclusions, and the fools are running away. It's not what you say, it's only what you can prove. You better watch your step, you better mind your P's and Q's. You got one chance, show me what you got. You got one chance, show you confident or not. Don't get caught in the matrix of all of these fakers. Society's spinning, and I'm just here living on the ground. Self-evident reason, deductions and conclusions, logically thinking, and the fools are running away. You're flipping over backwards to show me where you think you are. Your model dictates that you never see too far. Shrinking in the distance, you can do fuck all with an angle, and the fools are running away.
And we are live. Welcome, everybody. Well, not so many. Tonight's Logic Night. This is one of the great paralogisms tonight that we're doing, going over parallel lines. It's going to be tough for a certain group of people to get over this. Clary, have you got a bit of wind noise there?
Oh, sorry, I'll kill it.
Yeah, I've got parallel lines, and I'm going to have to go back to try and find some of this stuff from earlier because it's been funny today. Obviously, there is Saragaki's in. Good. Right. So we've been going over today, and it started pretty early on. Let's see if I can find it. Oh, it's been raging all day. Globers and the paralogisms, all based around geometry. Wow, you guys have really been going at it, haven't you?
Oh yeah, in the chat, yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to go back to the beginning of it because there's some stuff that Stark Otter did, like really early on. I don't know whether because you've been going at it all day as well, haven't you? I think that's where it sort of started with Betty came in this morning. Look at this. You want to see an active chat?
Yeah, today I've been really wanting to focus in on what the actual point is that we're discussing. I've been trying to hone in on the actual point, and the person I've been talking to seems to have been either intentionally missing the point or, been hung up on his own non sequitur point to the one we are actually discussing. He doesn't want to actually address the issue, and it's getting a little bit worn out now, because then he hasn't really replied in a while, so I guess that speaks for itself now.
Have you seen Betty's logic thing? The extension?
Ooh. Yeah, I bookmarked it, hold on.
The one where he's got just sort of lines and stuff. It's got line 1 brackets, line 2 brackets, P bracket, like, and a plane and a line.
Oh yeah, this
and
one,
another line, and line 1 perpendicular to P, and line 2 perpendicular to P. Equals.
Is it this one you mean?
Let me see. Oh, I can't because I've gone all the way back to really early on.
Oh right.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'm showing it on my screen. He's got it in like a gold background. I think he's calling it predicate. But, I mean, we'll go back to that. I'm looking for Stark Otter because Stark Otter did spot on did that. Where's Wally? Cleary came in. Or maybe it was a bit earlier. Earlier than Where's Wally? In the early shift. Maybe. Bobby said in predicate logic and existential quantification. Right. Here we go. So like every now and again I have a go of Euclidia, which I really advise people to have a go of it. Once you get into the 5th section, it's about parallel lines, right? So there is proofs within it, right? Propositions that you do, and there's only one way of doing it, and that sort of shows that parallel lines exist, right? Because there's propositions that you do. So I put a thing here. It says that 5.1 is construct a line parallel to the given line through the given point, and there's a couple of different ways of doing it with perpendiculars. 2, you build one perpendicular off the line and then another perpendicular off that perpendicular, right? To make a parallel. You just it's dead simple. So, and then I showed the actual proof of how you do it within the construction, which it's amazing when you get into these geometric proofs to prove that this line is parallel to this line, and the way you do it. So if I said, if a geometry states there's no parallel lines, but you can prove a parallel in a geometry, does that mean that the geometry that states there's no parallel lines doesn't exist, or that the proof for parallel lines doesn't really exist? That was me asking Betty and Starkadder, I think. Where's Wally? So I didn't bring Starkadder into it. Just basically saying that if there's a proof for parallel lines within geometry, does that prove that parallel lines exist, or does it prove that that's not really a proof because somebody says that parallel lines don't exist? There is no parallel lines. So Bebby says, I don't understand what prove a parallel means. What you prove are propositions, aka statements, not things like lines or planes. Perhaps you mean prove that parallel lines exist. Construct a line parallel to the given line through the given point. So that's what how Betty replied. But this is what gets me, because logically I would say, if you can prove, or you can do an exercise to show that a parallel line can be drawn parallel to a given line, right? Just give them any one line and then make a parallel to that line. Can be done. Starkadder says, if a geometry states there are no parallel lines, and you prove the existence of parallel lines using the axioms / rules of another geometry, it proves absolutely nothing about the aforementioned geometry, says Starkadder. It just proves that you're conflating unrelated things. I'll get that. Let me just get a screenshot of that so you can have a look over it. Copy. Right. Jump to present. There you go. Yeah, yeah, he's got a longer one than that. Yeah, you have to go back quite a long way. I might get it for you, but I mean, yeah, that's it there. Can you see that?
Yeah, I'm reading it now.
So that's what I thought. Tonight it might be a good idea to go over exactly what is logic. And I came up with a good one. I said, like, what's the reason for logic? And Cleary pointed out that it is about reasoning logic. And it's that's the whole purpose of logic. The reason for logic is the fact that you want to be able to make a relationship of things in your mind for yourself. Because if you don't have that, I believe you could go crazy.
Yeah, you want to formulate your thoughts, your inputs into something that can be understood by the other person. Formal. This whole idea of formal goes hand in hand with logic. Because you want to be able to make a factual statement about something. And you're really going to have to mind your P's and Q's to formulate that properly if you want to convey the essence, the meaning, the substance, the identity of what you're talking about. It's really important, this stuff.
That's why
Am I
I
breaking
think.
up?
No, you sound okay. Are you coming in?
It's like building.
Oh.
Is it good or am I breaking? Never mind.
Yeah, you are breaking a little bit.
Yeah, you might be able to try. Go on, give us a try.
You have to give me a minute.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's basically what I wanted to go over tonight, was just, I think geometry is the easiest way for you to be able to show a logical process. And how you end up at a result using a logical system to give you a definitive answer. Right? But not only that, you can use reasoning to understand the process that goes on to get that proof. And it's expressed most easily by this one particular statement about parallel lines. Now, everybody knows that parallel lines are real because there's a word for them. There wouldn't be a word for parallel. And to think that you could have a conceptual idea that no parallels exist. I mean, how hard would you have to imagine to think about there not being any parallels? It sounds crazy to me. Because for you to not have parallel lines, you cannot have a square. The square, the rectangle, as a shape, can't exist. And Starkodder here states that if you can prove that parallel lines exist in Euclidean geometry, that doesn't disprove that there are no parallel lines. It just sounds crazy to me how he can think that. I mean, to me, that's not a logical process that's going on in his mind there at all. How can you say that non-Euclidean geometry isn't disproved by Euclidean geometry? Just that, not that geometry that has no proofs, but apparently now doesn't need proofs. Doesn't seem logical. And since today we've been going over a discussion that's obviously raged on with Saragaki. I mean, I'd like for him to sort of have a go at talking about it. But it is the same thing. It's parallel lines and just the relationship once you add in perpendicular as another statement.
Yeah, even without bringing in perpendicular, the whole idea of a straight line, the shortest distance between 2 points, that shortest distance exists in reality. Whether or not you want to think about it or not, that shortest distance is there. That is a straight line. You can't get around that. And the second you have one of those, which you get from 2 points, then clearly you can have a second.
Oh, sorry, Sarah.
I was gonna just finish off saying if you can have one, you can clearly have as many as you want. They will all be parallel.
So I guess you haven't met Bob. Shortest distance between 2 points. He can do it in a shorter distance. So
Yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah.
That's like, is that worth bringing up? And that is point.
yeah, for
Shorter.
comedy. Yeah.
Yeah, shorter than a straight line. Wow, how could you imagine that? What
Yeah.
would that look like?
I can't, bro. I can't.
You'd have to imagine a place where not where there's no parallel lines, right? That wouldn't work. That he's completely got that wrong. Shorter than a straight line distance is it's impossible, right? But it definitely wouldn't be on a sphere like he wants, a 2-dimensional sphere. That wouldn't happen. I don't think it'd even happen in the place where there's an infinite amount of parallel lines. That doesn't make sense either. I mean, that's even harder to imagine.
Yeah, because if there are parallel straight lines, then there will be 2 equal distances as well. So yeah, that would be a complete violation of logic if you could have a shorter than that straight line distance.
Well, shout out to Booby.
Yeah. But I mean, that's beside the point, really. We are talking about straight lines that obviously most people know about. They do exist, these straight lines, and they are proved within geometry. Because the whole geometric system wouldn't work if we didn't have that geometry to start off with.
Imagine arguing against a straight line. It's mind-boggling.
Well, there seems to be an argument going on at the minute with a certain group of people that have decided that one, there are no proofs. They get upset at the fact that proofs do exist in a geometry, but it's not the geometry that they want. So then they get upset about that. And now I don't know what's happening, Saragaki. I mean, what did you... I noticed that early this morning there was Bebby and there was Bebby and Wally, and then Stark Hodder came in to say that stupid comment there. But then as soon as that and you came in, you had Dahomey Don. They swapped it, didn't they? They brought in somebody else.
Yeah, I didn't get either Baby nor Stark Order or none of the other ones. Only Dahomey Don the entire day. And he had his tactic was to get away from the straight line by saying it doesn't exist, you can't have one in reality. That was his defense. They don't exist. Simple as that.
Yeah, the shortest distance between 2 points doesn't
Yep.
exist.
That's a fairy tale, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what he said.
And then you had to show him about the geometry. So did he say that... Is he sort of hinting at the fact that geometry doesn't relate to reality? Is that? Do you think that's what he was saying?
I think that's what it's about, yeah, separating geometry from reality somehow, somewhere. That's, I think, the end goal of that discussion, yeah.
Yeah. Well, Pythagoras' theorem can be proved in reality.
Yeah.
And do they not seem to understand that?
Well, personally, I haven't talked to any of them directly about Pythagoras' theorem at all. It would be interesting to see what they have to say about that.
So they're putting the straight line out the pasture?
Well, the Homidon said you could never establish a actual straight line in reality. It wasn't possible. So, or he actually saying that he had no idea how to go about doing that, which is where I picked up with him saying, okay, well, here's how you do it, right? He said, no, that's impossible, and he maintained that throughout the entire conversation I had with him, where I actually showed him how to do it. And no, his defense the entire time was just that, nope, it doesn't exist, can't do it, it's impossible.
What
His
did you show him? The circle, the middle point there, or something else?
I showed him the surface of liquid water at rest, forming a horizontal plane of reference.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, every point,
Nice.
every single point, any given point on the surface of that water exists in reality, meaning that between any two given points on the surface of that water, there will be a shortest straight line distance in reality. The water exists in reality, you can't get around that.
Wow. How about a spider's web? A spider hanging and no wind. Would they call that a straight line?
Would they?
A tower crane. How about that?
Well, it's supposed to be like, yeah, I guess so. Yeah, man-made, but I was thinking nature, but yeah, perfect example.
Yeah. But Saragaki didn't Dahomey Don say that there is no water is never a straight line because there's always pressure, and so water is never going to be straight?
No, he said water is never going to be at rest. It will always be in constant flux and motion, so it will never be able to establish an actual straight line.
But that's a physics denier. Even in physics, they say point, like you got a tube, you got a meniscus on each end, the middle of one meniscus to the middle of the other, point to point. That is perfect horizontal line. At all points along the zero pressure state, or any pressure point, you could take an inch down, and that pressure state, an inch down from the other one, is a perfect horizontal at all points along that.
Yep. Not according to Dahomey Don.
Well,
Yeah,
according to him, the very specific argument is temperature, like J-Ro is pointing out in the chat. Vibration and teeny tiny billiard balls makes up everything, and they are always in constant motion, and so therefore no straight line can be established, because the water will therefore never be at rest. That's his argument.
Yeah, that must be a new one because... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say what is hydrostatic? Liquid, static at rest. It's a thing,
Exactly.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are going back to the idea that, and I say back to because I've heard this before, is that the shape of molecules or atoms spherical, and they're assuming spherical. So it's all made up of little balls, like Saragaki says. So there you go. There you have it.
So I just thought I'd just mention that I'm siphoning my 100-meter water level as we speak. Giving it a little wash through, Just thought I'd mention it. Little service. Going to be using it on some fencing.
Paper Organists in the chat says he thinks it's sophistry, the Dahomey Don stuff. The whole thing.
They have to deny the straight line. That's where it's become now. They have to deny it. They're doing the same thing now with. They're doing the same thing as they're doing here with geometry. They're doing the same thing with throwing a ball. Now they're saying you can't throw a ball in a straight line.
Right.
I think that he was talking about a straight line that is impossible to obtain in reality, because as I wrote, what we are drawing on paper, it's not ideal representation of ideal straight line. So I think that he is talking about that we cannot draw ideal straight line, therefore the straight line cannot exist. And this is sophistry.
Absolutely. Now they're getting into dialetheism, straight and curved at the same time.
Yeah, that's Wally's thing, right? It's so infinitesimally curved that it looks straight. It appears straight.
Yeah, or they'll boldly draw a line on a basketball and say, look, from the top it's straight, but if you look at it from the side, it's curved. Yeah.
Straight, curved, straight.
That was Bob, no?
That was Bob, yeah.
Yeah,
for 25 minutes or something.
Yeah, that was a good one, Bev. Yeah.
Go ahead, John. What'd you say?
When paper organics was referring to an ideal straight line, what does that mean?
It means let's look at postulates. Euclid wrote, let's draw a line. And he knew that we cannot draw ideal straight line on paper or on the ground. So when he was talking about this line we can draw, it is obvious that we cannot draw ideal, perfect straight line. But this, what we can draw only representation, not ideal representation of ideal straight line, but mathematically it is straight line. You may call it consensus, that we agree that this, what I drew, is a straight line, and it meets conditions why we call it straight line, because this is the shortest distance between 2 points.
I'd say that first bit of Euclid is it says that a line is 1d length without breadth, and then it goes on to express a plane or a superficies as length times breadth, right? That doesn't exist. So in order for you to conceptualize your proofs based around that early stuff, he says in the postulates, right, let it be granted that you can draw a line. It's just to allow you to be able to try. Now, when you get into book 11, into solid geometry, he doesn't need to express the line as a straight line, because he says, and he starts talking about the definitions of a perpendicular to a plane. That's what a straight line is. He defines the straight line and the right angle in relation to a plane. I think that early stuff is just the propositions, is to aid you to be able to conceptualize that you're developing proofs by your thought process and the action of doing what it is you're doing and using the reasoning behind the what you're doing, I think, practically.
Yeah, if you were to draw a straight line and call it a straight line and offer it and show someone on a piece of paper that it's a straight line, and they put a ruler against it and say that's a straight line. I wonder if some of the people we spoke to recently could have a curved line and then say Well, if you look at it from a different point, it probably is. It's probably straight.
Yeah. Do you think somebody within a geometric setting, and you said, here's a straight line, and we can make this shape a square, and somebody would come up to you and say, "No, it's not. You can't have a straight line." It's like, well, that's a square. Well, no, it's not. Can't have a square if you can't have straight lines. You know, that's the point we're at, though. I think when we've developed a conversation with people. They've gone
to absurdity. They've gone to absurdity. Yeah, we forced them into this crazy talk.
The same thing would be with measurement. If, for example, you have to measure line to be 10 centimeters, in reality, you never achieve that correct, ideal 10 centimeters. You will be always off, maybe 1 nanometer or whatever. And
so when you say ideal, you're talking about perfection.
Yes, that's why I said that this is not ideal, not perfect representation of ideal straight line. That's why I said that.
How about a plumb bob and like a fishing wire? You know, thin fishing wire. You hang it. You let it at rest. Would you call that straight?
Representation, but ideal straight line have no thickness. So if we drew anything, or we can take a very thin cord, but it's not ideal because
but in reality.
Yes, reality.
What about the wire? What about the wire that he asked you about? Just wanted to know what your answer was on that, yes or no. If you hung a really big weight on the bottom of a really thin wire, would it be straight?
The spider gave me that idea.
The rope will be straight, of course, but this rope is not the ideal straight line. Geometric.
Yeah, are you saying conceptual? Is that what you're saying? Sorry, I'm like trying to figure out what are you saying. Just conceptually, it's or you can't get a straight line in reality.
Let's try this. How about a ruler and a piece of paper? You draw that. Is that not a straight line to you?
It's not perfect. It cannot be, but this is not the argument. This is the argument I think that Betty want to use. That you cannot realize the perfect straight line in reality.
Are you going microscopic on us, or I want to understand how you're thinking, because I gave you 2 examples now.
Hold on, Essie. He might not. I don't know if he's talking about himself or talking about a situation.
I am speaking about Betty's argument.
There you go.
Well,
then I'm not familiar exactly.
Can we just agree that a straight line is the shortest distance between 2 points? It doesn't need to be drawn.
Yes, of course.
Or measured.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
And when you do that, right, what you can do, because you've got to think about things geometrically, you have 2 points. So you have 1 point where you could put the compass point and the other point where you could put the pencil. So that just turns into a radius, right? There is no numerical value of 10 centimeters and exactness or whatever. You could just call that distance 1. Yep. That's it. And from that, you have as much information as you need to know that is the distance you're talking about. In my mind.
Yeah.
I fully agree with you, but Betty's argument was about existence in reality. So I think that's why I call it sophistry, because you cannot draw in reality perfect line. So his argument is that the straight line cannot exist.
What is perfect
argument,
to you?
I think.
What is perfect? What do you mean by perfect?
Perfect, geometrically perfect.
You mean unattainable?
Yeah, Plato's perfection.
So you're saying it's a... Sorry, go on.
And I mean also thickness, because any line you draw has thickness and you can see it. So it cannot be a line because the line has only one dimension and this is length. So
Oh, you're thinking, I get what he's doing. Okay, you're thinking of the 2D concept and bringing that into reality. Of course, that's, yeah, obviously that can't be done.
Yes, and this is his argument, I think. Betty's argument. That we are in paradox and therefore we cannot prove straight lines, parallel lines, and so on. I think this is his argument here.
Well, that's kind of
Should
nonsensical.
I think we should wait for Betty to bring his argument, because I mean, there's now worse than somebody portraying a glober's argument, because then we end up making their arguments for them. I mean, he can judge on the validity of his supposed argument by the discussion we're having, and then he can decide whether he wants to actually bring that argument or not, right? We're taken out of his hands by trying to assume what his argument is. He has brought some logic that he wanted us to look over. He calls it predicate logic. Doesn't seem to relate to the same sort of geometric logic that we're talking about, and he doesn't seem to have any sayings in it. But I mean, I don't know whether that's one of his arguments. Beddy, anyway. I think that might have been Dahomey Don's argument that he's talking about. Sorogaki, is he?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Because I've blocked Dahomey Don, so I've not seen any of that shit that he's been saying. Only the stuff that you've been saying to him.
Yeah, I've been using him to try and help me formalize my own words and just emphasize the actual point and get better at expressing this, because everybody does the exact same thing he does. He wants to violate this law of identity of perpendicular. They all do that at some point. They want to have them diverging to the same from the same plane, yeah.
Or else no sphere.
I have
one of that things has to go, either vertical or horizontal.
I have a clip here that I put in from whatever, and this is obviously on the thing that we were talking about last night, right? It says on the model affliction Mondays, triangles with more than 180 degrees. Now, can you remember right at the very beginning, I had north, south, east and west, and I put a thing, how many circles do you see in this picture? Well, this is his reply. It says, it's not difficult to image how the cardinal directions on a map can be two circles that meet at right angles. I mean, listen to it.
What?
That's crazy talk.
Yeah.
Two circles are meeting at right
two
angles?
Two circles that meet at right angles. Two planes can intersect each other at right angles. Two circles, one on each plane, will also be orientated at right angles to each other. A circle, when viewed edge on, appears as a line.
There it is.
A line.
What I was saying before.
Like a line with length and no breadth.
Yeah,
exactly. Like a circle can be seen like that. Like as a nothing.
Which of course it can't, as it has no thickness.
Yeah, if the two circles on perpendicular planes intersect at this point, they will appear as two perpendicular straight lines when viewed edge on.
It is.
North,
viewing.
south, east, and west. This man, two circles, obviously.
What is that? Dialecticism at its finest?
Absolutely. That's a paralogism. That's the great paralogism. Circles. There's only the model that can dictate that to you. North, south, east, and west. 2 circles. And then justify it by viewing it edge on.
He is bringing up a perspective here.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Perspective of an edge-on circle.
Yes, from certain perspective, you can see the circle only as a line, but this includes 3-dimensional space.
Well,
So
he
the
assumes you can see a 2-dimensional figure edge on.
Yes, that's why he says you can see, not that it is, but what you can see. Not always you can see 3 dimensions. You can sometimes see only 2 dimensions or 1 dimension. If you put the circle in the certain perspective, you can see the line. But this is still real circle. But he's talking about what you can see. This is another example of sophistry.
He's going 2D, 3D, 2D, 3D.
Yeah, he's
2D,
looking
3D.
at 2D edge on from 3D. Right? He's conceptualizing 2D within a 3D framework of his eyes, looking at 2D. But not looking at the circle as a circle. Yeah. He's looking at it on this plane, like it within the plane that the circle's on. Crazy, but I mean that's where the globe puts you. The great paralogism is unescapable for most people.
In the same way, they are creating straight lines on the globe, because from perspective, if you have, let's say, this line on your 0 point of perspective, it looks like a straight line. But if you rotate a little bit this ball, it will become a curved line. So they are talking about perspective view, when you can see curved line in 3D as a straight line.
That's some imagination. He's taking a 2D object and viewing it in 3D in his brain. That's what he's doing somehow. Crazy, man.
Yeah. That's this new globe geometry.
Yeah, and also the other way around. If you have a circle, in reality, how could you have a circle in 3D? But, you know, if you have a circle and you want to represent it like that in 2D, from the side on, first of all, how can you if it's a line with no width, just length? Number one.
Exactly.
Yeah, but let's assume, you know, that doesn't make the line actually straight. It is still a curved line. You can't get around that either.
Yeah, you know what they do? They take the circle, and in their minds, it becomes a hula hoop, you know? So this way they can view it from the top, straight, and then just go on the side, there's the curve.
Yeah. It is just a distance we are talking about. Bottom line, it's just a distance. It's nothing physical, it's just a distance.
I think
to be a baller.
What he means, whatever, in that particular thing, is 2 planes can be at right angles to each other. And that's the way he's conceptualizing the circle, as a plane. So it you know, geometrically he can still conceive that it works, because as planes being perpendicular to each other, much like the X, Y, and Z axis, 3D, 3 space, Euclidean 3 space, as we say, X, Y, Z. The planes are all perpendicular to each other. Each of the dimensions are perpendicular to each other. as only can be done within Euclidean geometric framework. Provable as well. But he's just conceptualizing the great parallelism, the big circle. The sphere that isn't there has to be put there in the minds of people. And that's
Two
why
curves.
he's saying circles at right
Two
angles.
curves make a 90.
Yeah, it is all relativism and postmodernism, like Buster had talked about, right? It's like it's a circle, but I can call it a line, or it looks like a line, but it's really a circle. So I call it a line, or I call it a circle. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, there's
But
no difference
there's
really
no law
between
of
the line
identity.
and the circle.
Yeah, none at all. Just depends on your perspective, right?
But that's logic. That's what Saragaki brought us that at the beginning. It's the idea that you can exclude the middle, right? There is no middle ground. Where that's what it seems like to me. They want to blur the lines between, that either or, the definitive answer of deductive logic.
Absolutely.
Truth or false, one or the other. If it cannot be a truth, if it is false. It cannot be a circle if it's a straight line.
Correct. It's
Oh,
one or
they
the other,
can't.
law of identity.
Mm-hmm.
They can't have that. No way.
Nope.
If you have rigid definitions of things, you can set a true dichotomy, 0-1 logic. But if the definitions are blurred, you have something in between. So there is no longer 0-1 logic, and this is good. Good
Yeah, their
area.
whole thing is uncertainty.
Yes. This
To
field
leave
of
them a way out.
uncertainty.
Yeah.
You can have at least the third option.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what Brenda said, wasn't it? That's para-consistent logic
Yeah.
to a T.
Yep.
Well,
Exactly.
there's two ways they do it, right? One is they include the middle. They add in some, not all, like some. Blur the lines with maybes within the logic. They include the middle. That's adding the third option. They can add as many as they want, within that framework. Or they can do the one where they, the law of non-contradiction, they just throw it out the window. So there's a couple
paradox.
of different ways that they do that, right? They can blur the lines multiple different ways within this. And that's where logic comes in, I think. The purpose of logic, it helps you to see all of these inconsistencies. Helps you to be able to point them out.
And back to the names of things, right? It's the stuff that it all falls together, doesn't it? It's the stuff that we've been doing on the Trivium nights as well, with the naming of things and purposely naming things. A circle is not a line. It's that following that logic would be like looking at identical twins and saying they're the exact same person. How is that logical? They appear to be the same, therefore they are the same, and we could treat them the same. No, they're different.
One of the purposes of logic is to reduce your thinking into true dichotomy, the 0-1 logic. So there is, in Latin, it's called tertium non datur. It means the third option is not given. You should go that way to obtain this true dichotomy through excluding everything what is in between. But the Globbers, they are reversing this process.
Yeah. Yeah, but I don't think it'd be unfair to say Globers, I think, because it's not only the globe that does this. They're just the people that we're talking to. Within this framework of this thing that we talk to people.
Not only Globbers, pseudoscientists.
People, most people, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Most people, vast majority of people.
Yeah, not to the exclusion of me, right? I mean, I'm still open to the fact that I could have had this done to me. There are certain things that I hope people would point out to me, if that's what they were thinking. You know, like, let's have a conversation about it, and let's open these paralogisms up so people can see them. I mean, I'm open for the discussion. But I do think that geometry has a way that you can formalize this sort of logic. You can rationalize what the statements you're making around a template, let's say. And if you can try and maintain that template into other areas, then you've got a firm footing and a firm understanding of how to go around, at least how to communicate this. Like Taragaki said, he's been using the discussions that we have with people that are stubborn, let's say. They don't want to help you continue the conversation. They're trying to put roadblocks up everywhere at every turn. Especially around a perpendicular statement about straight lines and right angles and all right angles being equal.
Yeah, you get with this stuff. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Surgaki.
I was just gonna express some amazement at it, because it is so simple. Everybody knows what a right angle is. Everybody knows a square. All the angles in a square, they're all equal to each other. You know, everybody knows this basic stuff, but you're gonna sit in Discord and have a long, drawn out debate with someone in Discord about whether or not that's true. You know, it gets hilarious, and it is amazing to me that it's going on at all.
I totally agree. I think, you know, where I've been going myself on my own personal journey is that this blurriness that Bev talks about, and it's not just in this arena. It's with the vast majority of people, and we all have our own paralogisms to a certain extent. There are sophists out there, that's a fact. But this blurriness of logic and blurriness of what is the law of identity is how you get to the idea of 1984 and the Ministry of Truth. This is where it leads people, because eventually someone's going to come in and say, and people are going to demand that it stop being blurry. And someone's going to lay down their version of the law, and that's going to be it. Reality or logic or anything else be damned. Doesn't matter. This is where we're going.
I'm so scared
This is why I love this group of people, because at least we're trying to get back to something that it puts some rigor around our thought and our speech. And maybe it's just our, 20, 30, 40 people, whatever we have. But damn, man, we need it. Because it's like Saragaki said, how many hours today, Saragaki, did you spend?
Yeah, I don't know. It's been really strange, and it all boils down to the words we use and what they mean. All of it.
Exactly.
So yeah, you're right. All it would really take is for anybody to just have a slight misunderstanding of a word somewhere, and it would trickle down into your understanding following upon it after that fact. If you take on false information, like Buster says. Yeah, it would definitely be, detrimental if one of these words that you misunderstood is actually important, Yeah, this is a really important discussion for sure.
Yeah. This is how you get, to the point where someone says, well, 2 + 2 = 5. I can show you 2 plus 2 equals 5. It's a fact 2 plus 2 equals 5. Don't you know? And if you don't believe 2 plus 2 equals 5, perhaps there's a prison we need to put you in.
And that seems to be the thing, like with the shadow giants and everything we talk about, that it's a choice, really. Are you going to let reality be dictated by what somebody said, or by what it actually is in and of itself? Is the words of men enough, or can reality speak for itself? What are you gonna go with?
Well said.
In that scenario, this is generally speaking a terror of political correctness, because everything is political, even geometry, so or arithmetics. So you are under the terror of political correctness already.
Yeah, well, I refute the validity of political correctness by saying it's just the same as consensus. A straight line's the shortest distance between 2 points. Like, you can't do anything about that.
You know what I was just thinking when we were saying about the word and how things are described? Before, well, until recently, everything was written down, right? In a book, on a clay tablet, whatever. So it would be hard to, let's say, disinformation, right? But think of it now, with a click of a button, they can change something, a historical event, or, I mean, when was the last time you went to the library to look something up? So it's instant misinformation.
Yeah, they've set themselves up for victory at the end of this, haven't they? They've gone all out in some regards.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, what I was going to say to SE is that's not a new concept, SE, right? As we know with the 12th axiom, right?
Yep, that's right. Yep.
Doesn't matter even when if it's in print. You get enough people to have a consensus about something, and it becomes the ministry of truth. Oh no, there's no 12th axiom. There's no axioms at all. As a matter of fact, my Euclid Elements does not have axioms. They're not listed as axioms.
Absolutely, bro. Absolutely. The point I was trying to make is the time difference, like where it would take, I don't know, a generation to get rid of the books, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Now it just takes 1 second, literally.
Correct. Yeah. Click of a button. You're right. Exactly.
Scary stuff. Really scary stuff. Well, don't they do that with Wiki all the time? Sorry, whoever I cut off.
That's right. I see. I was just going to say about the changes, in these books that we've seen in, Euclid's Elements, or you go back to the early books. I think that's where you've got to start. Just try and again, they're only books, but it's the changes we can see in, especially in recent history.
Yeah, that's what I did when Raven brought us around his thing, right? Saying, man, I know I've heard this stuff before, something. And I was searching and I found the organon. And then, well, he knew all about it. Raven knew all about it. So when you search back, you're going to see that stuff. What you think was invented like recently, somebody thought of it like 2,000, 3,000 years ago and even wrote it down. It's crazy. It's crazy.
How do you know 2,000, 3,000 years?
That's another good point. Yep. Could have been 100 years ago.
Exactly.
Yep.
Shadow giants told you.
Could have been 50,000.
Yeah.
Good point. Yep.
Yeah, they could have just been repeating it from somebody who said it 50,000 years ago, 100,000 years ago. Who knows how many times this has been around?
Funny, I was thinking about that yesterday. I was watching something, and it seems that all roads, they say all roads lead to Rome.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they don't. It seems that all roads lead to summer. I've been
Summer.
thinking about this and checking this for a long time. You know Samaria?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Most of the stories that we have, even some of stuff that we think like in the Christian Bible, most of the stuff can be traced back to summer. It seems to be the first.
Yeah, like the good Sumerian, good Samaritan.
Right,
Yeah.
right, exactly. Terms like that. Everything seems to have started in that area, as far as we know now, like modern, whatever you want to call it, archaeology, whatever.
People are visiting the Sumerian, numbers and how
And the stuff
they
is,
how they used them.
yeah, and the stuff is written down in clay tablets. It's not like they're making it up, right? Yeah, it's really crazy. Anyways, enough with that. I got really deep into that yesterday.
Well, that's what we're here for. As long as you can relate it to logic somehow. Free to talk about it. It's logic night.
Yeah, it seems that a lot of stuff that we think that we came up with can be traced back to summer. Like, no kidding, a lot. Like most stuff that we think about. The stories, yeah. The one that struck me the most was the Jesus story. You know, where they find in Egypt, the queen finds a basket floating.
Yeah.
Well, that is
Moses,
in, yeah,
Moses.
yeah. That is in the Sumerian text.
I personally think that this is fake, such as Epos of Gilgamesh, which is. I'm pretty sure that this is garbage brought only to invalidate Bible.
Are you saying the Sumerian thing is fake or the Jesus story? Which part?
Moses part is, I think, is true, but this Sumerian thingy, I think that this is much far-fetched.
Okay, yeah, I thought so too until till I seen it. I mean, I can't prove it by any means, right? But apparently, it's in. I can't remember what story it is exactly. I'll try to remember it and post it.
That's why it is very, 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 very easy to far-fetched, because you cannot check. You cannot go back 3,000 years ago and check if it is true or not.
Exactly. There's no way to know for sure.
Yep.
Well, you can't know for sure, but they have their story written in clay tablets.
The Sanskrit, but how do we know when that was done?
Yeah, you don't. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah.
Yeah, I wish we could trust that stuff. Believe me, I do. But how? I just can't anymore.
And by
I'm
whom?
with you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting, but I think we're getting a little bit away from the
Yeah, I was gonna say, you see how tricky it gets
Yeah.
to even have a conversation without any defined, starting point. Like, this whole idea of getting back to the meaning of the words and why the words even exist, like the word parallel, you know, the fact of the word itself and the meaning that it has, and as defined in Euclid as well. It relates to reality. It has to. And it's important, I think, to bring it back to that. And since the title of today is Parallel Lines anyway, what is a line and what allows a line to exist? What is the logic that allows that line to exist? I think this is interesting.
Mhm.
So I asked Rumpus, remember? Yeah, sorry, go on.
No, let's do a little thought experiment. Say we never heard the word parallel, had no idea what it meant, and you saw two lines together that are that. What word would you come up to describe that? How do you come up with parallel? I mean, you got to go with the prefix para, whatever that means. I'm not sure offhand. But and then lel. But yeah, I mean, how do you form the words based on what you're seeing like that? It's so confusing for me. How you would see
Just one
two.
word that somebody came up with. That's all it is. But once you see the symbol, bang! We could have called it a riggedy dog.
Yeah,
No?
but the words are supposed to be formed based on what your experiences are telling you. And you see two straight lines next to each other.
Yeah, that's where the visual comes in. You can't just say a word, right?
So parallel related to something else other than that prior to, I don't know.
Yeah, like you need the word, and then you need the visual, and then I think that solidifies it right there. But the word could be any word. Doesn't matter if it's not parallel.
So I mean, if it was stop sign, would we still see it the same way?
Yes, we would.
That's the way we originally learned it, huh? Oh.
And you can go back and forth. I'll tell you how. Like when we switched from Fahrenheit to Celsius, I fought it like a dog, right? But now Fahrenheit seems strange to me. I'm more familiar with Celsius.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
what we give it, what we give a word to that thing. That's all it is.
And this goes back to what I was asking earlier, right? Is the thing, what it is in itself, or is it whatever you say it is? Because that's the question of what it is to predicate as well, isn't it? Can you predicate the falsity off of something? Can you say that two parallel lines are in fact not parallel? Will that actually change the fact that they are parallel? It wouldn't, right? They would still be parallel, which there is a disconnect there between, do you go with what somebody said, or do you go with what it is in and of itself? The actual substance of the thing, the subject matter, all these words we have, the identity. What do you go with?
This is called
That's pretty easy.
definition. This is definition. That's why definition is not only how we call something, but definition is description what it is.
And
Yeah,
that's
but
why it
that's
comes
tricky.
before.
Yeah, that's tricky because a definition is an agreed upon thing. Like you can define parallel as parallel, and you go to another country and you tell them that word, they're going to say, what? Right?
That's why in geometrical definition you have more to say about what parallel lines are. You cannot say just one word because it means nothing. You can,
like, I'll give you an example. Like if you put on two bathrooms, right? Man and woman in all the countries in the world. Just the English speaking one are going to know which one to go into, right? But if you put a picture of a man like with trousers and another one with a woman, how would we depict a woman?
It's universal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is social thing, but geometrical proof is based on logic, and logic is common for all humankind.
Yes, agreed.
Yeah, which is why two parallel straight lines will be two parallel straight lines, whatever you want to say about them.
Exactly. Exactly my point. That never, ever will change. Like, no matter how much you try, you're never going to make water hump. Mathematically, figuratively, you can only imagine it in your head. And by the same token, you will never make 2 drops of water become a hump. Ever, never. It's never going to happen. Oh, there's another one now. There's another one. I think we have to invent a new word for this one. This one is trialetheism. This one comes from, first time I heard it was Ruhif, and then Bob repeated it. We have, you know what they say, a ball could both travel in a straight line and curve. Well, now we have a ball could be both stationary and moving at the same time.
You've been talking to them people again, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's that in reference to? What are they talking about?
Well, they say, depending on which frame you look at it.
Well, they're talking about the Earth, you mean?
Well, you know the example of the Coriolis with the ball traveling in a straight line?
Yep.
Well, you heard and curving. You must have heard that at the same time.
Yeah, I heard that conversation, I believe, yeah.
Right, that's dialetheism. No doubt about that, right?
That's for sure.
Okay, now, and Ruhif said, and I heard Blue repeat it, they say that the ball could be both stationary and moving at the same time.
Contradiction in terms.
Yeah. So is that trialetheism or is that quad-aletheism? What would you guys call that?
That's normal for them now, isn't it?
Yeah. It's crazy.
I think they do it now because the fact that you say, "Oh, that's stupid," they think that's good. They, like the fact that you can't understand why they're saying this stupid shit somehow proves the globe to them. It aids them.
I don't get it. Yeah.
Exactly. That's what I've been maintaining now for some time. It's why they come into the chat every day. It's why Saragaki has to spend hours talking, and Mike Jones is because they're reinforcing their own paralogism every time they come in. They have to reinforce it, because if they don't, then the cog dis will hit. They can't have that, so they have to come in here and reinforce their paralogism, spout what they say, so that they can read it back themselves and go, "Yeah, that's really good. I totally agree with that."
Somebody else says it.
Yep.
That's good. That gives me the right to say that stupid shit too.
Exactly. I think that's why they tag team each other as well. That's why you have Bebby and then Wally and then Dahomey Don is like today. And then Stark Otter will flop. And we've said it a million times, like, why are you in here? Just leave us the hell alone. We're doing our own thing. We don't need to talk to anybody else. I mean, if you want to have an honest conversation, have an honest conversation. If you're really seeking truth, let's seek the truth. But no one's going to convince anybody of anything. This stupid argument has gone on for how long now? And it just keeps replaying itself like some really, really bad sitcom that somebody tries to play over and over again. Stupid.
You're onto something, bro. I've always thought that, why they come. I've always thought by convincing us, right? When they try to convince us, I think they're trying to convince themselves.
Yeah, they're trying to.
Yeah.
They're reinforcing their own illogic.
Yeah.
It's not logic. There is a difference between logic and dialectics. In the first, not first, but the other version of Trivium, there is not logic between grammar and rhetoric, but it is dialectics. It was
right.
It was for advocates and lawyers, because in court they should convince judge to give a good verdict. So they were supposed to use dialectic proofs and not logic proofs. And Aristotle was against that. That's why he said that in science it should be logic, not dialectics. And these globers and pseudoscientists are trying to convince us about something, but we have logic proofs. Logic proof is always better than dialectic proof.
100%. Shout out to Raven. He was the first one to not correct me, but to set me straight on dialectic versus rhetoric, because in everything that at least everything that I read when I was looking at dialectic versus rhetoric, they downplay
just
rhetoric.
Go over that dialect. Go over it and let us just sort of, because I bet.
Yeah, let me.
Yeah, I mean these are new words, right?
Jump in for 2 seconds.
Yes, Rob.
I just want to say hi, everybody, and welcome back, Cleary, Redman, Serogaki, SC Montreal. Haven't seen you guys in a while. Thank you for being here.
Hey, Rob.
What's up, bro?
Hey, Rob. Thank you. It's nice to be here again. It's been a while.
It's dialectics versus logic, not rhetoric. They replaced dialectics with logic. Aristotle did that, but lawyers replaced logic and put in that place dialectics. And dialectics is based on proving by convincing. So this is not real proof, logic proof. This is called apodictive proof. Proof you cannot deny. But if you are creating proof by probability, you are falling into sophistry. So dialectics and sophistry are pretty much the same.
Yep, agreed. So I threw something out into the live chat, Bev. I see you brought it up already.
Yeah, I've put it out now.
Yeah, this is just one source. There's thousands, maybe tens of thousands of sources out there on rhetoric and dialectic. This one skews, just so you know, this one skews dialectic as being kind of better than rhetoric. It sort of says rhetoric bad, dialectic good. So if we just read this, it says, what makes rhetoric different from dialectic? As opposed to rhetoric, which is a unilateral process wherein one party engages in a lengthy and impassioned speech to bring others to consent to his way of thinking or to accept truth as he envisages it, dialectic is a bilateral process wherein two people or parties engage in a philosophical argument to reach a consensus of truth through dialogue and debate, refuting and rebutting each other's propositions. So this is where paper organist is, right? It kind of sounds like law, right? Like a law room sort of thing, dialectic. Rhetoric is also referred... Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
It means that 2 plus 2 equals 4 because we agreed on that. This is dialectic.
Yeah. This second bullet here, I don't agree with now for rhetoric. This is where I think they downplay rhetoric. It's not rhetoric as Aristotle talks about it. So just so people should know. Rhetoric is also referred to as a practical art which uses bombastic language, ornamental words, and cynical sophistication. Dialectic is more sober, practical, and persuasive technique of argument, which is deliberative and logical.
This
Wow.
paragraph
You have
is
to
not
be drunk
true.
on one of them.
Yes. So say that again, paper organist.
This paragraph is not true. Completely.
Exactly. It's not true. In fact, it's almost opposite, 180 degrees out from what I think truth is. But this is an example of rhetoric and dialectic, and how the names and what people have done to the definitions of these words. Dialectic influences one person at a time, whereas rhetoric has in its power to sway large audiences in mindless submission.
Which would be rhetoric today would be propaganda.
It's a
Yeah, that's
cynical sophistication. They're putting it in the realms of sophistry, aren't they? They're basically trying to say rhetoric is sophistry.
Yes.
Yeah, I think rhetoric was initially rhetoric. It became propaganda, and now they call it PR. It's all the same.
Mm-hmm.
You like brainwash people. You're not really telling truths. You're just trying to manipulate people through like emotional language.
Yeah, media is a one-way transmission.
But
But
this
you
is
see-
not rhetoric.
Yeah,
This
go
is
ahead,
not
paper
real
organist.
rhetoric. In ancient times, for example, Saint Augustine was rhetorist, and it is to speak fluently, speak good speaker. This is rhetorist, good speaker. But dialectist is that he is using flawed arguments to convince people. This is the same as sophistry. So what this is written here, it's I can see that this is not true.
Yeah, it's a no you argument, isn't it? This is obviously wrote by somebody who wants to downplay rhetoric into the realms of sophistry, right? Obviously somebody who's been beat.
Correct.
He's confusing rhetoric with dialectic. He's inversing. In fact, he says that rhetoric is doing what, in fact, dialectics is doing.
Yeah, turning everything upside down, right?
But isn't it
rhetoric?
Retort? You know, when you retort someone, you're objecting.
Didn't rhetoric start off as a teaching of the ability to speak? Wasn't that? Didn't we go over that with Raven? Didn't it start off as that?
Yes, it did.
And then they just changed it to
well,
mean like...
we haven't got there yet, right? We haven't got to the part of rhetoric. Because that's
or
part,
how to do it, right?
Yeah, that's part of the trivium.
We discussed it, I remember. We discussed it.
Yeah, it's part of the trivium, but we haven't actually got there yet. In order to get to that part, we first off have to deal with the identity of the subject before we can get to whatever the rhetoric is meant to be or was within Aristotle. We can talk about that then. It's pretty obvious now that there's something going on around this, right? Which makes me even more intrigued.
They messed up with the word.
That's why I wanted... Yeah, no, not messed up.
Yeah.
Not messed up. No, I think it's intentional. And that's why I'm glad you brought it up. And
that's what I mean, bro. Yeah.
Like when you ask a rhetorical question, though, you're just kind of being a smart ass because they know the answer. So the rhetorical retort.
Yeah, you're not. A rhetorical question is you're not really looking for an answer.
Yeah. It's like, do you
Because
think
the
your
answer
bedroom's gonna
is
clean
obvious.
itself?
It's idiomatic communication.
They made
That's
it
the
a
thing,
negative
right?
thing. Yeah.
They made it a negative because was that Cleary that was saying that?
Yeah, before that, yeah.
Yeah. So you're right, Cleary. That's modern. This is why I brought this up. Logos, man, it's freaking amazing. This is why I've been holding this and wanted to show this, because as soon as I was holding it for when we got into rhetoric and dialectic, because the modern identity that's given rhetoric is bad. In fact, it's very bad. It's associated with propaganda and all sorts of nasty stuff. And that's not, as Paper Organist says, that's not what it is. Rhetoric, Aristotelian rhetoric, is really closely related to that. Remember when we talked about that correspondence theory of truth? Remember we talked about that on one of the Trivium nights? It's closely related to that. It's being able to speak and speak truthfully
And concisely.
Yeah. It's all about that. It's all about taking the grammar and the logic in the Trivium and then coordinating those two or collecting those two concepts together into something that is speech. Into your speech. Right.
Consistent speech, but speech which involves chain of sentences, logic statements. It must be a very long speech sometimes. So you have to have skill to do that, to speak for an hour, for example, for chain logic. This is very difficult.
And they took that and they made it into something that means untruth, like
exactly.
Like flat earth, like the presidents. Yeah.
They conflate it with dialectic. I wrote this piece now, so they overtly they are exchanging rhetoric with dialectic.
The blurring the lines between the two, right? To perhaps try and make them both the same, interchangeable.
Yes,
it says
rhetoric like that.
Rhetoric is the infant terrible of the Trivium family. Like grammar and logic, it has an ancient pedigree. Unlike them, it boasts a rather checkered reputation. At times, the infamy even outstrips its ancestry.
Yeah, exactly what we just said.
Yep.
Yeah, but said better.
Yeah,
what we managed to do
it. Like poetry, man.
Yeah.
Outstrips his ancestry. Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah, so I wanted to bring that up because as we get into rhetoric and dialectic and people start going out on their own, you need to be careful because you can start forming an opinion of rhetoric that is 180 degrees opposite of what it actually meant in, Aristotelian times.
Yeah, if I was to tell you now, come on, bro, stop the rhetoric.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody would know what the modern meaning of that is, right? Stop the bull.
Yeah, you're just being a jerk. Yeah, stop with your baloney.
Yeah, you'd think of Reds, wouldn't you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Full of shit.
Red's rhetoric.
Yeah.
I can read something that I think more closely resembles, or at least describes rhetoric from an Aristotelian perspective. Just real quickly, says most notably, scholars became aware of the fact that Aristotle's rhetorical analysis of persuasion draws on many concepts and ideas that are also treated in his logical, ethical, political, and psychological writings, so that rhetoric became increasingly perceived as a well integrated part of Aristotelian oeuvre, which means I think his body of work or something to that effect.
Yes.
So yeah, it's absolutely key to the whole, including ethics, which I think we're going to have to get into eventually when we get into logic, because ethics gets is tied to logic as well, at least from Aristotle's perspective. This all goes back to our conversation about truth, right, and the truth value.
Mm-hmm.
Because the law has to be reasonable. Law cannot be unreasonable. So that's why this is linked between logic and law. Law cannot be illogical. This is forbidden in Aristotle times.
Yep.
I'm glad you said that because it's sure welcome today. Holy cow.
Everything's
covered
upside
it, eh?
down.
It is
That's the
upside
idea.
down.
Yeah,
Yep.
it is really, man. Yeah.
Which I think that's why it's so good that we start at the beginning of the identity and the meanings of words and how they all interact together, these words, and giving it a sort of a logical, mathematical sort of form to it. That's what we're doing. And yeah, these conversations, I think this is where we should be at. Brilliant conversations tonight, guys. So dialectic is similar, but more lengthy, and with you trying to persuade somebody, right? Or come to an agreement, is it? Through persuasion.
Convince by persuasion. Rather, using the probable proofs rather than apodictive proofs.
Yeah, it's more of a debate kind of thing. Like you're gonna use your dialectic to try to persuade an audience in a certain way, and as you see here, that's how they've painted rhetoric. That's not rhetoric. What they've painted as rhetoric is really dialectic.
So is that dia then too? And lectic sort of talking. Like
you
two
read
people
my freaking
talking
mind,
together.
Bev.
It is.
I swear I was just thinking the same thing, bro.
Well, we all talk like now the words mean things, right? And we are learning that these words have a meaning behind them.
Like dialetheism, I thought of exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
Dialectic, yep.
Yeah. You're exactly right. In fact, that is the one truth element that I did find in that whole piece that I put up there, is that they say dialectic is kind of a two-way street. Rhetoric is more of a one-way street, and that is true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it says it right at the bottom. Dialectic thrives on two-way intelligent argument.
Yeah, that's where the intelligent. You're intelligent if you dabble in dialectic. You're trying for mind control when you dabble in rhetoric.
Yeah.
So then you look at the trivium that includes grammar, logic, and rhetoric, and you go, "Oh, I don't want any of that. Why would you want to teach me any of that?"
Yeah.
It's upside down. It's like you said. It is upside down.
Right, sorry, I didn't want to get away from that, but I think that was an important thing there. Everybody talking about the difference between rhetoric and dialectic.
And that dialectic is it just hit me. You've heard Rakia say that whatever the Bible says, like the scientific community says the opposite. Well, not the woo-woo scientists. So it's like
the Discord community that we know and talk to.
Yeah, that's science community.
Yeah, not the real ones. Yeah.
Globe science community, you know.
Yeah, it's like the opposite of logic, the opposite of, yeah.
It's like, for example, if I assume that 2 + 2 is 4, and my opponent is assuming that 2 + 2 is 6, we can come to conclusion and consensus that this is something in between. It would be 5. This is dialectic.
Yeah.
Very well put, paper organist. Perfect.
Nicely done.
Yes.
Nice.
Well, it went through the review panel, so it must be so.
And it was published.
And it was, What have you published?
As soon as it's published. As soon as it's published. That's it.
It becomes law.
It does get tricky when you meet somebody that's not willing to change their mind, right? Within that form of discussion, which is, I think, what we talk to all the time, right? It is globe. Therefore, no other discussion. It doesn't relate to anything. There's no coming to terms. There's no common ground to start from. There's no meeting where you can build a foundation to work upon. It's just that fact that, you know, maybe intelligent people may say that. And until you meet them on those terms, then there will be no discussion. I think that's where we're at the minute.
Absolutely. How can we come to terms where even the straight line, it ends at the straight line?
Which is
because
where we were at with Saragaki earlier.
Yeah, it has to end there for them because there's no this globe if there's a straight line. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, can we get back to the bit where Kevin, I think it was, with paper, maybe you were talking about dialectics, and I mean, where was that going, or was that going to the dialectic discussion that we did have? I think I had a feeling it was going somewhere else, and I may have derailed it on the rhetoric dialectic sort of.
No, I don't know that it was going anywhere specific, Bev, unless Paper Organist had a destination in mind when he brought up dialectic. But I can't remember if he brought it up or I brought it up, but it got brought up anyway. Mm-hmm. It was good. It was a Logos moment, a little tangent for the Logos.
Yeah, and we'll come back to it at a later date, which we obviously will have to because it's the end part of the trivium. Rhetoric.
Yep, it is.
And I can definitely see this dialectic coming back at that point, because there's a difference. Or is there a difference?
There is a difference. There's a major difference between dialectic and rhetoric.
Mm-hmm.
At least, well, even in the one that I put up here, that's a false view of rhetoric. But in the original view of rhetoric, yeah, there's a big difference between the two.
And the word itself. Sorry, go.
Difference.
Mm-hmm. There's an ethical element to rhetoric. Aristotle's rhetoric. Remember that. There's an ethical element to that. Personally, I do not believe. Yeah, I do not believe there is for dialectic. At this point, I don't believe so.
Hey.
Maybe somebody can convince me otherwise.
Why do you say that?
That there is a
there's
an
no
ethical
element. You said there's no ethical element to dialectic?
Nope, not in my opinion.
What can I ask? Why?
Yeah, because I see dialectic now as two lawyers speaking.
Oh, okay. If you're looking at it that way, yeah. Okay. you completely took ethics out of it totally. So.
Yeah, or like Paper Organist's example was, two people are talking and they come to a consensus that 2 + 2 = 5 because one says 4 and the other one says 6.
That's a good example. I like it.
But rhetoric being ethical would depend on the one giving it. Because the one giving it, if he's not an ethical individual, him or her, how will their rhetoric be ethical?
Then it's not I would submit it's not rhetoric then.
Oh, so your rhetoric definitely pertains to ethics.
I believe so, yeah.
Okay, I can accept that.
I mean, we'll get into it, and you guys can decide for yourselves. And once we get into rhetoric and we talk about dialectic, and maybe there is. I mean, maybe there can be honest two-way communication between people, but then in my opinion, there's no objectivity as to whether both people are being ethical.
But if one is, couldn't he force the other into being ethical? Through his rhetoric?
Force? No, I don't think so.
Well,
force might.
You know what I don't mean twist his arm or anything.
That's a good.
Putting him on the spot, to be honest.
This is all good philosophical stuff, and maybe this is good for Logic Night. I don't know, but you're getting you're opening up or peeling back the onion a bit, John, on whether or not an unethical person can be convinced to become ethical.
Okay. Gotcha, Kevin. Thanks.
And that really is a philosophical.
Yeah.
Can
Sure.
it happen? Maybe. I guess. I don't know.
I
It's a good
understand your
question.
point. I understand your point.
But
So what if
Kevin,
you
is it
answer
fair to
rhetorical?
Go ahead, Rob.
I was just going to say, what if you answer a rhetorical question?
Well, a lot of people do answer rhetorical questions, but I said it before, rhetorical questions don't require an answer because they're axiomatic. In Aristotle,
Right.
I think Aristotelian wise, they're axiomatic. They're axioms. It's true speech. It's speech that is right. You use logic and grammar to then speak that logic and grammar. So it, again, I say, this is my opinion, it carries a truth value with it. So there is no need to, there's no such thing as a true rhetorical question because I think that's apples and oranges. I think there's a dialectic question, an honest question if you're asking somebody else, but then that's dialectic, supposedly. If you think about dialectic as something that could be good, then it's a conversation between two people and you're asking a question and you answer it.
You need a sound effect for that light bulb going on in your head when you realize there's no need for rhetorical questions.
There's no need to answer a rhetorical question. Yeah.
I have a question.
Is it rhetorical?
No, it needs an answer.
Go ahead.
Isn't by definition, when you have a dialectic conversation, let's put it that way, doesn't it have to necessarily start off with two opposing thoughts?
They don't necessarily need to be opposing, I guess. To be honest with you, Essie, I haven't really done my due diligence on dialectic because it's not part of the original trivium. It's rhetoric, logic, and grammar. And I see dialectic as trying to replace Aristotelian rhetoric. So I have a potentially tainted view of it, I will grant. And so I don't know. In a debate format, I would say yes, right? One person has one position, and that position they could say is rhetorical, right? It's rhetoric for them. They've put together their logic and their grammar to then speak that, quote, truth. And then maybe another person has their logic and their grammar, and they're speaking their, quote, truth, and they're opposed. And so now you're going to, through the process of dialectic, try and convince an audience, I suppose, in a debate format.
Yeah. I was thinking of like the pure meaning of the word, but yeah, that's why when I see words like this, I always check them out because when you search, you'll find that most of the time they have multiple meanings. You know, like mass, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah. Mike put a definition of Hegelian dialectic out there, and it is basically paper organist's example. Is the way I see it.
It's even more because Hegel went one step forward because he said that let's stick to this example of 2 + 2 = 4 and 6. So one day it is 5 by consensus, but another day I will meet another person who says that this is 7. So now this consensus 5 is becomes 6 because it's in between. So he is invoking evolution of truth, Hegel.
Yeah.
Evolution of truth.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
If you want to go there, for people that really want to go into a rabbit hole, look up Overton window, because that's really what's being depicted there is the Overton window. Look up the Overton window, and you'll know where paper organist is going there. Constantly moving window of truth.
That's crazy. How about another definition for dialect? I just thought of one. Dialectic. How about doublespeak?
Well,
well,
I don't know. I mean, because if you both
don't
agree that it's 4, then you've come to a consensus that 4 is the answer.
But that's crazy. If you say 2 and 2, well, 4. I mean, 5 would be the crazy one. One says 4, and one says 6, right?
Yeah, well, that's
And
the sophist says 5, right?
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
And then just
Or is
because
it
you're
the
talking
paralogist?
with them, the sophist or
Is
the
it the
paralogist, it
paralogist
doesn't
that
really
says
matter.
5, or maybe the sophist says 6,
Mm-hmm.
Or
and then the paralogist says 5, right? I'll just go along to get along, and I'll believe it. It's 5. 2 + 2 = 5. But the axiom, the rhetorical person, I believe, would say 2 + 2 is 4. It's axiomatic. That's it. It's logic. It's logic, and I'm using my grammar. I'm using my word, my grammatical thoughts to say you're full of shit. 2 + 2 is 4.
Yeah.
Maybe
But
you
use
need a third
rhetorical
person.
there. Sorry, Spot.
No, maybe you need more than 2 people.
So tiebreaker, democracy.
And what does rhetorical mean exactly, sir?
It depends if the other person has taught the rest of the other people.
Yeah.
Possibly.
And with
Because you
this,
use rhetorical as truth, right? There in that sentence, I believe. Kevin?
I'm sorry, what was that, Essie?
Did I misunderstand? You used rhetorical as truth in that sentence?
No, I wouldn't say so. I think rhetoric, Aristotelian rhetoric, has a truth element to it. That's my opinion.
When your
But
rhetoric,
no, it's not.
in that
It's
case
not a
was
substitute for the word truth. No.
okay, but your rhetoric was truthful in what you just stated.
Yes, it was. It's axiomatic.
Okay.
Oh, is that what about the ethical part then? Is that?
I think so. Yeah.
Mhm.
but now there is room for psychologists, because if someone can agree with this 2 + 2 is 5 or 6 or whatever, he can he is in cognitive dissonance, but psychologists can explain that if he feels better with that number, this is okay.
Yeah, justify the paralogisms for him, or the cogdis, right? And make an allowance.
Acceptance.
Yeah, acceptable paradoxes.
I accept this bull and I make it mine. And I will fight for it on Discord.
I'll say stupid shit.
To defend my beliefs, yes.
Yeah, the best. So just looking up Merriam-Webster, because we all know how much some people like Merriam-Webster, like Brenda and so forth. But for rhetoric, all not good definitions for rhetoric. It's amazing. Yeah, so we got the art. This is kind of neutral, I guess. Art of speaking or writing effectively, such as the study of principles and rules of composition formulated by critics of ancient times. Formulated by critics of ancient times.
You see?
Yeah.
Critics of ancient times. That's written strangely, isn't it?
Isn't it? Yeah.
They say it straight to your face.
The study of writing or speaking as a means of communication or persuasion. Skill in the effective use of speech. A type or mode of language or speech. And also insincere language. That's rhetoric.
Which part of it now?
Three last are true.
All of those are definitions.
Yeah. So when you come across a word that has that many definitions, the radar should instantly go up. Something ain't right here.
Yeah.
Check out Saragaki in the chat as well, because I find Saragaki's language is fascinating. The way he uses the words, right? It seems like in Saragaki's language, the words still have true meaning, right?
That's
the
brilliant.
understanding behind the words.
That's brilliant.
Mm-hmm. He does that with all sorts of words, don't he?
It's interesting because I was just thinking back last time with the predicate as well, but this time rhetoric. When you break it down, it sounds to me like you're trying to convey the idea that you're going back to shake at the foundation of what allows you to even say the thing you're saying in the first place, double checking whether it's solid before, that's what the word itself, rhetoric, sounds to me, in my language when you break it down.
On the opening page in the copy of the Trivium I have, it has rhetoric as the art of persuasion, and it has an illustration of the snake convincing Eve to eat from the apple.
There it is.
But in fact, this was pure dialectic, because he used the dialectic proof, because God said that you cannot eat, but Satan said that you cannot touch. So he, how to say that? This was not about touching, but eating. So he confused Eve, because he I cannot find a proper word, but this was
he convinced Eve. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So I think I got it.
But
I got it for you, paper organist.
He exaggerated this. For this, what to is for what is forbidden. Forbidden was eating, not touching.
Exactly. So God had said that if you believe the story, right? God had said to Adam and Eve, on the day that you eat of this fruit, you'll surely die. And then when the serpent comes around, he switches it up when he's talking to Eve and says, says that God had talked about touching it, not eating it. Not true. He said eating it, not touching it. So so John's book on the Trivium starts with garbage.
Well, I think John has said that his book is a little more modern.
No, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. Not that it's John's fault. John didn't write the book.
Yeah.
All right. But the one that he got. Yeah, no problem, buddy. Yeah, but I love what Saragaki wrote here. And I think that my suspicion is when we get into rhetoric, you're going to see that that's probably very close to what Aristotle had meant. Is it? I don't know if it's so much shaking the foundations as it's getting the foundation before you put it out into the world as something that exists, your speech. Because when it's in your head, grammatically and logically, it's in your head. You haven't shared it with anything. It doesn't exist outside your head. Soon as you speak that into existence, it now exists in the real world for other people to hear.
Yeah, that's like having all that information. Sorry, Bev.
No, go on.
All that information and knowledge, and what use is it without sharing it? You could live a lonely life and be the cleverest man alive, but what good's that? But I mean that's a little bit, but yeah.
Goes where I was going to go, right? I somebody once said, you can have all of the facts and all of the proofs, but if you have no way of communicating that, right? If you can't convince people of the words that you're using and the statements that you want to make, if you can't convince people, then it's not going to mean anything. So rhetoric to me is the ability to use the words in a way. Now you can use words in a wizardry, right? With spellcasting, trickery. But it all comes down to the person, and I'm guessing, like Kevin says, the ethics behind why, the purpose that you're trying to intend to use the words.
And that's why I think this word is interesting, because at the end it says Rick. That means orekes, to shake. Doesn't necessarily mean violently shake, but it's this kind of shake as in like a chair or a table that's one of the legs are a little bit shorter. That kind of wobbly kind of shaking. You want to test if it's actually level. That kind of shaking, Rikke. That's why it's interesting. That's why I had to specifically put the shaking idea in there, because that's what the word specifically alludes at the end. The shaking.
Like you say, because speech has to be rhetoric, has to be impressive in a good way. Impressive. Boring speech, even if it's logical, it's not good speech.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get at. It's understandable that you could change that into convincing people. And I'm pretty sure that knowing the type of people that we talk to, they would be able to twist anything around if it doesn't fit their narrative, right? They could twist rhetoric into a way that you are deceiving people with it.
They will. They will, absolutely. All you have to do is go to Merriam-Webster and look up here's the synonyms let me give you the synonyms for rhetoric. Ready for this? Bombast, fustian, gas, grandiloquence, and I had to look up grandiloquence because I never heard it before. The synonyms for that are bluster, bombast, brag, braggadocio, hot air, rant. Those are the words that are Merriam-Webster says are rhetoric.
I was like talking about you. Just kidding.
Yeah, exactly. And here we've been touting that trivium, logic, grammar, rhetoric, right? This is what they've done to the language. This is not coincidence, guys. Just be aware of that when we go through this. Don't let people, to use Saragaki's thing, don't let people shake you, right?
There is some truth in this, because you can twist rhetoric into that parody of rhetoric. But
yes,
for example, in ancient times, in the times of Cicero, he was a great rhetorist. There were two schools. One was Asian school. It was very beautiful, with great abundance of expressions. And there was Attic style, which, for example, writings of Caesar, De Bello Gallico, De Bello Civili, they were written in the Attic style, very, very short, very rigid, short, and not abundant at all. The second was Asian style. It was very rich.
Sorry. So, I mean, have we thrown this out? I mean, I think we've gone to rhetoric, have we? I don't know how we ended up here, because...
well, it's a preview.
That's all right.
No, it was good. It's a good conversation. And it's
I think it came...
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think it came along with the idea of what is a straight line. and how we were going to, are we going with what somebody says it is versus what it actually is? That separation there, I think, sparked off into the rhetoric part.
Right. Yeah.
And
And that leads to your question. You want to say what your question was in live chat for the folks listening?
yeah, this is to end off on that rhetoric talk, because where the word itself leads me into how to think about what the word means. It leads me to think then that if something is stated with perfect rhetoric, then that means the truth value of what is stated is maintained throughout your entire statement from start to finish.
I like
That's what it means.
Mm-hmm.
Bingo. That's what
like
it
it.
means to me.
Mm-hmm.
You got it.
But
Yeah,
truth
but not to
of
most of the
statement-
people. Sorry, bro. You're very low. I don't mean to clip you. Sorry. Go ahead.
the true statement is logical statement, but people like Betty, I think, is moving to change into dialectic. This is not rhetoric. I'd rather think that he's moving to dialectic because lines are parallel. This is logical statement. There is nothing to argue about. But Betty is going to argue about this, so he is going to dialectic.
Correct. Then it's not perfect rhetoric, right? As Saragaki posits in here, right? So his take is with perfect rhetoric, then the truth value is maintained throughout. If you're one that says there are no parallel lines, right? Parallel lines don't exist in reality. Then is that really rhetoric, or is that dialectic? Is that
Yeah,
you trying to convince someone of something because you say it?
Yeah, that statement that Saragaki wrote cannot be true.
Now, it sounds like you're conflating dialectic to an untruth.
I don't mean to do that.
Dialectic-
It's my taintedness with what I understand dialectic to be and how it's used today,
Okay.
especially.
Yeah, I would say that because it's dialectic, right? If there were two people and they were in agreement, would that be dialectic, right? It necessarily states that there have to be two differing opinions with a consensus in
Exactly.
in the middle somewhere for dialectic. So
Exactly
if people agree, then it wouldn't be. Whereas I think rhetoric sort of, you are speaking to people in general, trying to state your case as well as you can, rather than just
but you're
one other
thinking,
person.
That's
yeah,
correct.
but you're
because
thinking of
rhetoric
ancient rhetoric. If today, if someone was to read what Saragaki wrote here, they'd be laughing right now.
For today or in ancient times?
For today.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, paper organist. Sorry.
Rhetoric is neutral. It's not stating if it's true or not. That it is just your skill.
Exactly.
You can lie with skill, and you can say truth with skill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
It's how
everybody
you phrase
else's
your words.
everybody else's tools that you give them for the logic and the grammar and all of that, they should be able to see the truth value behind what is being said, right? But that relies on people having the understanding of the words and the logic to be able to judge that for themselves as to, who is portraying what.
That's why Aristotle was opposing logic against dialectic, because logic has to come to definitions, and dialectic is blurring definitions. So you can fool your opponent more easily.
I think rhetoric has been stolen. It's been changed. It's a done deal now. You can't use it the way we want to use it.
No, you're right. We have to be careful, but it is the word that's used in the trivium, right? I mean, that's that is, and we'll find out what that means. And I think Cool Cat had mentioned as well. Maybe we have to come up with new words for some of these things because they've been stolen, or do we try to take them back? Right? I always am one that says we take them back. We don't come up with new ones. But
yeah, if you can express what rhetoric is and somebody else cannot, then I mean there you go. That would be would it be a dialectic discussion about the meaning of rhetoric?
Yes, absolutely. The very meaning of that word.
Crazy.
Dialectics means dialogos. The philosophers were writing dialogues. For example, Plato and Aristotle also. So they were, and Socratian method is also dialectic because he was involved in many discussions with people. So he was dialoguing with people.
Yeah, but at least they were coming to terms in the beginning. The Socratic, right? Yeah.
Yes, Socratic.
Yeah, they would agree on the terms. Yeah.
I think that's the best and only way to have a conversation, for real.
So, but the thing to keep in mind, though, is, if we're evolving at least our group's understanding of rhetoric, sort of the good rhetoric, if I can put it that way, not the bad one that modern times portrays rhetoric as. If we say that, and I think Paper Organist is probably right, maybe I'm putting a truth value on it prematurely on rhetoric. But here's the thing, right? If you, as Paper Organist said, you can have skill in lying, and you can use rhetoric to lie. And then is that sophistry? Would a sophist, Paper Organist, what do you think? Does a sophist use rhetoric as their main weapon?
Like lawyer who want to defend overt murderer. There is also the last book of Organon is against
sophists. Yeah.
One sophist name was I cannot Georgias of Leontinoi. It was famous sophist, and he was author of writings about how to defend blatant criminals.
Yeah. So maybe it is like Bevan mentioned. Maybe these things are tools. Then we have to think of them as tools, and they can be used for either good or ill. In which case, you got to kind of think that is going back to our discussion around predicating as well, and whether or not that's the same thing. You're getting into philosophical areas.
That's not the same thing.
Why?
In my opinion, because when you predicate, it's the descriptive word of which you're predicating.
So it's got to be based in some sort of reality, is what you're saying, which carries with it a truth value.
I would think of it in that manner.
Okay. That's good. I love these discussions. I could do this all day.
Yeah, this is what we should
it
be
doesn't
doing.
mean I'm right. It's just the way I think it. I mean, yeah.
Wait a minute, I cowered to your authority there.
So have we come to terms, sir?
When you put it that way, yes.
That's my favorite saying in all of this. Coming to terms. Have we come to terms?
To agreement on terms.
Yes,
right.
Before the conversation, yeah.
Therefore, we can speak one language.
Yes.
So if you can't come to terms, you can't have the conversation then, right?
Well, you can't. I guess you can technically have a conversation, but I think that's why Bev said, right? Do we really want to talk to people that are untruthful? Where does that? Yeah, why would you want to?
There's no gain there.
Like if we want to talk about mass, right? for example, and one guy is thinking resistance to acceleration, and the other guy is thinking the amount of stuff in something, which is also wrong. But just giving you an example, right? How can you talk about that if one guy's thinking about the resistance to acceleration and the other guy's thinking about weight or the amount of stuff, or right?
I think this is hijacked term because in original massa it is a Latin word, and this means amount of stuff in
Yes.
given volume.
Given volume, yes, that's for me. That's what it means. Yeah,
It's what I would have taken as well. Yeah.
It can be a lot of stuff. This is vernacular use of this because this word is vernacular by definition. So this can mean many things, but in general, it is stuff in given volume. So this is exchangeable with matter.
yeah, but that is, if you read some of these scientists, they'll tell you that that's the wrong definition of mass. It's not the amount of stuff in a given volume.
Nowadays, scientists, because in ancient world, in Latin word, this was vernacular word, mass, great.
Yeah, for me, that makes the most sense, right? What does it mean, the resistance to acceleration? I mean, you know, what does that mean? Or inertia. Inertia, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Inertia, yes.
Yeah.
They are twisting words, like, for example, tolerance, which means now something else than in ancient times.
I think they use these, I call them magic words on purpose.
Yes, of course.
To support those theories, yeah. They need those definitions like that to support the ridiculous theories they come up with.
Yep.
And I think that's why they cut it off at this point where you want to talk about the straight line. Because there is what that straight line actually is in and of itself versus what some people want to tell you about that straight line. And so it's easy to cut it off at this point and not continue into the straight line itself. Where the fact is, the second you have a straight line established, then you can have a perpendicular to that straight line.
And
you can have and parallel. Yeah, don't forget.
Through perpendicular.
You can have a plane. Yeah, through perpendicular, yeah. Perpendicular to every line within that plane. And the other plane, making them parallel.
Yeah.
All of that follows logically, and they can't have that in their reality, so they have to cut it off before you can even talk about straight line, because they know the second you have a straight line, all of the rest follows along logically.
It's the implications, right?
Implications,
we said the other day when McToons changed his definition of flat earther to mean anything by implication that denies the globe, all right, whatever. Well, we found out that the straight line by implication means there is no globe. If you can have a straight line, then you can prove that the globe model doesn't exist. And that's why they're fighting this at the minute, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Just because of simple geometry, they have to have this not that geometry. Logically, right? The logical conclusion they have to come up with is that geometry doesn't work because it doesn't provide them with any proofs. In fact, geometry, Euclidean geometry, the proof of such all geometry, doesn't help them with their model, and they're just upset about it. That's why I don't think they can talk about. That's why Saragaki has been in the chat today for a good 5, 8 hours talking to somebody about perpendicular and coming up with valid and sound proofs, obviously, that would be backed by any geometer anywhere. Would back everything that Saragaki's been putting in the chat today, but there are people that will argue against that. By implication, I think. Because of the implications that they perceive brought around by their misunderstanding of them thinking that we're flat earthers, therefore geometric proofs, they think, well, they are proofs. But it is the implications of the globe earther that makes it difficult for them to know what a straight line is. I think it's genius. Such a brilliant conversation.
Makes them looking stupid. They don't realize that they look stupid if they say something like that a straight line is curved. This is just stupid. 3-year-old child can laugh at them.
Well, they've got a model. And yeah.
I don't think looking stupid is a concern for them. I really don't.
Yeah. What was it earlier, Saragaki? Perpendicular to a curve?
Or two circles perpendicular to each other or something like that, right?
Yeah, making right angles, 2 circles.
Right angles, yeah.
But
yeah, I tried to illustrate the point about the perpendicular lines by having him envision the compass, right? Northeast, southwest. And I think it kind of put the conversation into high gear from that point on about it, because he really wanted to equate a straight line to a curved line for I don't know how long after that. He wanted to say that those are equal. They are the same thing, in fact. He wanted to make the point of curved and straight being the same thing. Discuss amongst yourselves, because that's what I've been refuting all day to him.
Dialecticism.
Yep.
there you go.
It's almost comical.
How many circles do you imagine there are in this picture?
Yeah, exactly.
It's genius. Globers have to say 2. If they don't say 2, then it's not the globe.
And he can violate, or anybody can violate the law of identity of what perpendicular is in and of itself. If you do that, then you've exploded the logic and the geometry and all of that, but you can at least clamber onto your globe and believe that a straight line can be a circle. But it actually can't, and you can't have a right-angled relationship between 2 curved lines. That's not how it works.
Yeah, well, you don't explode the logic if you drop the dialecticism axiom in the middle. You know, just do away with the law of non-contradiction and state that a circle can be a straight line.
What if it's slightly curved, though, Saragaki? It's only ever so slightly curved.
Like, you can't ever tell, but it's definitely just not straight.
Yeah, you could pretend, couldn't you, that the triangle and the circle, some sort of a scale relationship made a difference to it.
Yeah,
yeah, you can pretend.
That was Wally's argument a little earlier today. Slightly. ever
I
so
think
slightly
that
curved.
you can draw a straight line with a compass because it's the same as straight line. Curved line you can draw. You can draw a straight line with the compass, and you can draw a curved line with the ruler. This is conclusion from what they say. Because if straight line is curved, you can draw straight line using compass, right?
Well, I can't see how you do that because you need a radius to be a straight line and a diameter. You can't it's just yeah, I know.
Parroting.
Yeah, but then what came first, the circle or the straight line?
You can't have a circle without a straight line. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But how can you think that they're both the same thing when one's needed to make the other? It's unbelievable. But, I mean, that's where they go. I mean, can you really say that's sophistry? Because you'd have to assume that the people you're talking to are stupid to think that you could get away with that. I would, anyway.
It is tricky to stay on topic and formulate yourself to a point where it's like there can be no misunderstandings at this point anymore, right?
Yeah.
And you post, and then you get fed something that is clearly meant to divert from the point. But it's like you say, you have to think at some point this person must be really dropping the ball somewhere if it actually thinks this way, right? This is incredible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you think, are you a sophist, and do you imagine that I have a really, really low intelligence? And not only me, everybody else, even the Globers, right, that they're talking to. Somebody said it earlier. Beddy obviously thinks that the Globers are beneath him, because he doesn't ever have to imagine that he tells the Globers about and has a discussion about anything. I don't think the Globers ever have a discussion about the arguments that they present. I think they only present them to us. That's it. Because this sophistry, you need to imagine, if you're trying to convince somebody, imagine you're talking to a child and trying to convince them that the straight line is the same as the circle. I don't think you'd be able to do it, but that's what these people are doing. They're literally trying to convince us that there is no difference between a circle and a straight line.
Yeah, and it's kind of hard to convey an hour-long text discussion with someone, to how ridiculous it gets. The lengths that people go to conflate between a straight line and a circle. Literally, that's the basic argument.
Yeah.
I mean, listen to how crazy that is.
Yeah, and that you don't understand the difference between them.
Yeah, it's my fault. It's my error. Of course it is. Yeah.
It doesn't require any explanation on their behalf at all.
Nope. And if my claim is that there is a definite difference between a circle and a straight line, then of course I have to prove that to him very mathematically and very formally. Otherwise, it stands to reason that they are the same because he said so.
Yeah. And that you can't come up with some sort of a proof that a circle isn't different than it's crazy when they. But I mean, that is it's either sophistry or, well, I mean, like I said before, if it's sophistry, then they are imagining that everybody else around them is literally stupid.
Yes, they assume
it has to be.
They have to assume that, because a con man or con artist is doing his trick, he assumes that he really is able to fool the audience. So he has to think that he is smarter than the audience. Otherwise, the trick will be spoiled.
Yeah, but that will make him a sophist then, not a paralogist.
Yes, sophist, yes. And sophist is, such to speak, it is a liar.
That I can accept, but that they're paralogist at this point, not for the straight line being that I can't accept. You're either a nincompoop or you're an outright liar. One of those two things. You can't have any intelligence in you in my brain.
I can't believe that these people are saying sincerely that this is true, that straight line is the same as curve. It cannot be spoken sincerely.
Exactly.
I cannot believe in that.
Well,
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
why I've always said model affliction, because they're forced into it. Their model tells them they have to. That there is no other way. Especially once they've sort of labelled us as flat earthers, then going ahead with the geometric proof to them is an agreement that the Earth's flat. Even though we don't say that the Earth's flat, they say that we're flat earthers. They're the ones that say that. And that's why they're in this position, because they assume that Euclidean geometry is flat Earth. They've almost said as much. Different geometries for different models.
It works in navigation. They are utilizing only flat plane to achieve elevation angle and to do trigonometry between your position star and GP of the star. It's pure Euclidean geometry, flat geometry, and it is in their books, Glober's books of navigation.
Yeah, plane geometry.
Yes, plane
Yeah.
geometry. So this ball Earth under this tangent plane is completely useless in calculations. They don't use globe in any calculations during making this navigation calculation.
Well, have you? How many people have you had a discussion with? Because we've never really had chance to have a discussion about the, and I'm still waiting for one of the globe navigation experts to come and have a discussion about it.
Yep, this is very sensitive territory. They get very triggered. And I'm talking about certain flat earthers. I got banned from a certain flat earth channel because I brought that up.
This navigation topic?
Yeah.
Yeah. I told them that maybe they're not prepared for this conversation simply because that book that you just said, if you get into that conversation, the baller will tell you, where'd you get that book? Isn't that a globe book? Right? If you're going to say celestial navigation proves flat earth, well, you got to deal with that book. We call it the magic book.
No, I'm talking about on Nathan Oakley's show. This guy, tenth man, he brought many books of navigation.
Exactly. Yeah.
And all they say that they are utilizing flat plane. during these calculations, and that's it.
Are you sure? I'm not too sure they say that.
They do calculations on flat Earth, but they are speaking about globe beneath that, but this is that's nothing to do, has nothing to do with what they are really doing while they are doing measurements using sextant. Because if you are using sextant, you can only measure the angle from your position to the star in straight lines, so you can obtain a right angle triangle. That's only how sextant works.
I don't think you can obtain a right angle triangle. You're just measuring an angle. That's what SE is pointing out.
Yes, they are doing dip correction to lower your position to horizon, and horizon is assumed as flat. And so you have your angle to the star, your position with dip correction on flat water, assumed flat water, and you have therefore a GP of the star on this position on the water, in the water.
Let me ask you, how do they get the GP to form their triangle?
The GP is the plumb. This is literally the plumb line between the star and the surface of water.
Right. And if I was a baller right now and to ask you, how did you get that GP? What would you answer me?
On the ball, this is impossible, because you cannot take this measurement. You cannot, if you are not assuming flat plane at your feet. So you cannot take an angle because you have.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but I don't think you got my question. You said the GP, the ground position, right?
Yes.
You get your angle, then you get the GP, right? Now, where do you get the GP from? The GP to that star that you're going to use to form your triangle. Where did you get that GP from?
From triangulation, you are creating triangle already.
But didn't you get it from this certain almanac?
Yes, they are. Yes, they are using almanac where the star is at given time, at which position. Yes, they are.
That's where the weakness comes in. The baller's going to tell you that book isn't that a globe book?
No,
well, not only that, but you're not making a triangle. You're measuring an angle, one angle. That's it. There's nothing else involved in it.
Angle between assumed flat plane of water and the star. This is the angle which sextant is literally measuring.
Okay, one angle. Now, how do you get a triangle from one angle? Or how do you imagine they do it?
If you have one angle, so you have two straight lines, one to the star and one to the horizon. So this you are just missing this plumb line from the star, because they have to obtain
a plumb line from the star.
Angle.
I mean, you've got one angle. I mean, surely you know a little bit about geometry.
Yes.
So if all you have is one angle, then where do you go from there?
And the plumb line, what's this thing about a plumb line? Where are you going to put a plumb line to a star?
As I said, the flat plane is assumed. I didn't say that it is proven. It is assumed in the calculations. So therefore you can create a right angle triangle.
You can't.
But how? You how?
You've got one angle. How do you get a triangle? That's the point.
Because you have 3 points: your position of the star, the angle, this position, and GP. This is your third point.
How do you
So-
know the position of the star, and how do you know the GP?
And your position as well. You don't have your position, do you?
If you are on the ocean, of course, you are trying to establish where are you.
Okay, so you don't know where you are, but you can measure an angle. Now you've got one angle. You don't know where you are.
Because in almanac it is written where the star is right at your zenith position.
Mhm.
So this is you can calculate where
And
it is.
without the almanac, what happens then?
They always have almanacs.
How about the Polynesians? Did they have an almanac? You see what I'm saying? We could do these crazy, like, it's a very iffy thing.
The point is, when you're using the sextant, you're establishing one vertex, one angle, one point, 2 straight lines, but you don't have any endpoint to either of those 2 straight lines. Unless you have this magic book that tells you both of those other endpoints, allowing you to imagine a third straight line that encloses that space to form a triangle. That's a very big leap of faith you gotta take. How do you measure the distance to any star? How do you relate that back to your position where you're measuring this angle in the first place then? And how do you measure the distance to the horizon from your position measuring an angle with the sextant, You have to go to the book for these things.
Yes, but in book is written where the star has the GP above your head, and this is moment when navigators are writing this star. For example, Sirius is now on my zenith, so I wrote in the book that at given time and at given position where he knew where he was, he wrote that this star was just above his head. So this is establishing GP position, I think.
But they're going to tell you that book is based on a sphere.
Why?
Because that's what it is. It's based on a sphere.
No, why? It cannot be.
They got dip angles, correction angles, this angle,
celestial sphere, right?
Celestial sphere.
You are talking about celestials. I think that celestial sphere doesn't do nothing against it, because it doesn't matter if it is a dome or spherical something above our heads. The stars are in given position, and you can create a box. So you can create 2 triangles with a diagonal, which would be this.
You
your
can't
measurement
create 2 triangles with one angle. That's all you've got all the time. It's not geometric, is it? For you to measure an angle and then find some way to develop a right angle triangle when you've only got a starting point of one angle. You do not have any way to measure that line, either of those distances. And we laughed originally because the whole idea of this method that you're talking about is to put a light in the sky on the ground.
Yes.
That's ridiculous. To relate those 2 things together is a folly in my mind.
a thing that's millions and millions and billion of miles away, you're going to give it a ground position? Think about that.
But why are you assuming that great distances?
No, I'm just going by you're right. Yeah, I am assuming. Yeah.
Well, that's the geometric thing about it, right? The moment you do that, you put a distance to it. You do.
Yep.
And then it then enters a geometric discussion, which they aren't going to put that distance. Are they? They're not going to do that. So therefore they come up with something ridiculous. And now they're at the point that they have parallel light from the light in the sky. But they don't have any trigonometry either. I mean, you want to wait until you get into a discussion with the globe, but you never will.
But this method with sextant is disproving parallel rise, because on flat plane you can obtain this angle and even GP of the star to the ground only if the light is divergent. So you have dilemma, or you are assuming parallel lines, parallel rise and globe, or you are assuming flat plane and small star. This is dilemma with Eratosthenes.
No, well, you're assuming you can find a triangle from an angle. Like there's a book somewhere, right? That all you have to do is measure an angle, and somebody else will give you a book and finish the triangle for you.
Because this GP is given from somewhere given zenith of position of the star. If the star is just above you, it's so your position is position of GP of this star. So you can establish this GP of the star at your position if the star is just above you.
Right, now let's take it as a practical thing. The stars in the sky, lights in the sky, do they have a fixed position in the sky?
This is my opinion. I think so.
When they're moving?
I mean, they have fixed position to each other, but they are rotating, of course, always.
So this book that you've got, I mean, do these lights in the sky have a similar position night after night? Or is it constantly changing? Are they on a cycle, an 18-year cycle?
They are on the cycle. Right. Yes.
So this book that you have supposedly has the positions of these stars over an 18-year cycle. Is that hourly? Have you ever seen this book?
No. I just rely on this what 10th month said. Yeah. I am not an expert in navigation.
But can you see now the problems? Where initially when this was brought to us, it sounded stupid to me to assume that the lights in the sky have a position on the ground. To put a light in the sky on the ground and say that's where that is at this time, on this day.
Their fault. I just traced the origins. It's your fault, Bev. Your brethren did this. 1766.
Mm-hmm. Greenwich.
Published by the Royal Greenwich Observatory.
Greenwich.
Now tell me, were the British back then flat earthers?
Can we get this sorted? It's Greenwich.
Oh, sorry, Greenwich. Yeah. My bad. Oh, so you don't pronounce the W.
No.
Thank you.
That's GMT.
Greenwich.
It's Greenwich Mean Time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But that's just an arbitrary place that they put it. Or is it arbitrary, right? Is there something funky about Greenwich that they decided to put it there? Or is that just a point that they decided this is the start point?
You guys had the empire then, so somebody just said, here, we'll put it over here.
I think it started in France, actually.
Did it?
I think so, yeah.
No, but my point is that book, that almanac, right, was made by people that believed the earth was a sphere. So anybody using that argument, that book, you can get something like this thrown at you.
So if they believed that we live on a sphere, but they were calculating us if we were living on a flat plane. So this is inconsistent.
Yeah, I see your point, yeah. In my opinion, they would have to be, right? But I'm just saying it's a weak argument.
Yes, I agree that this is not logical proof because it's telling about what people are doing with the sextant. You can do everything with sextant.
Yes, exactly.
And for me, the logical proof for that the Earth is flat is and always was and will be a gyroscope. Because gyroscope is doing what is doing without our will. He's doing always the same. He's keeping rigidity in space always.
And SC will love this, and just add the fact that there's no such thing as pole and no such thing as a globe. Sorry, buddy.
No such thing as pull. Yeah, I like that one.
I am serious about that, though.
Well,
I know we had
just to bring this back to where we started it. Perpendicularity, right? Longitude and latitude lines. Do they intersect perpendicularly?
No, they cannot.
Are you sure?
Perpendicular lines cannot intersect.
No, latitude and longitude. There is two lines. Do they intersect perpendicularity? Well, perpendicular. Are latitude and longitude lines perpendicular?
Yes, they are.
Right, and perpendicular is straight lines, right? You cannot have circles that are perpendicular to each other.
Of course not.
So, and longitude and latitude are two-dimensional coordinate system.
Yes.
So that's
is two-dimensional.
Yeah, two-dimensional coordinate system with lines that are perpendicular. Anything say globe to you? In those factual statements about longitude and latitude lines?
No, on the globe model, these lines are intersecting, and they are not creating squares, in fact.
Yeah. Only in your imagination, though, right? But when you say it, longitude lines go north-south, latitude lines go east-west. They are both perpendicular to each other, and they are a two-dimensional coordinate system. Fact, 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 fact. There's no globe. You can't have a two-dimensional coordinate system with lines that are perpendicular on a ball. There's no logical
That's
statement
true.
for you to link one to the other. So the geometric proofs are already there. Like Saragaki, he's formulated an extension of t-shirt logic about perpendiculars. I mean, it's geometrically perfect. But it's like that argument that we've just exposed there. Longitude, latitude lines. Two-dimensional planes. It's just geometry. You can't get around it. But it's a proof that has to be denied. Logic kills the globe. Goodbye. It's gone. If you take on logic, then I don't think you can have the globe. That's why nights like this, there will never be a glober coming. Never.
That's why they stopped learning logic in schools.
Mm-hmm.
It's the complete opposite, as a matter of fact.
Now they learn just propaganda.
Yeah, and they take wonder out. They take logic and they take wonder out of the children. That's what I think they do.
Yes, for example, this testing system. This is awful because it releases children from thinking, because he is choosing without thinking.
Yeah, exactly. One of my biggest beefs. They give you they give you a question and three choices. But how about if the answer is not C and D in reality? Or at least you think it's D, right? No, you can't even put that down. You have to pick one of those three.
Yes, correct.
Conditioning, yeah.
They limit you to thinking what they want you to think.
And the way they want you to.
Exactly.
It's
And plus,
really...
at 4 and 5 years old, pledging your allegiance to something, you have no idea what it is. So there's a combination of things going on there.
They are trying to establish a cause and effect between things that they have no causation within. It's just propaganda.
Yes, sir.
Or they are confusing correlation with causation. They are two separate things.
Well, they think they can use time as a variable, so... time as the cause of something.
Yes, I know this argument. But Aristotle's definition of time kills everything. Time is measurement of motion. This is Aristotle's definition of time.
That is the very definition of what we use, the sun, the moon. Yeah.
Yes, we are measuring time, therefore we can know what time is. Not in a spiritual sense, but in practical sense.
Do you think it's real? Do you think time is real?
Same as density, because density is the proportion between volume and weight. So, but you cannot touch density. So, but we know that there is density of the object, must be. So, therefore, this is proportion between it is measuring speed generally. So if the motion have more speed, the time is the measurement of time is quicker. This, the same relation. So we cannot touch the time, but we know that it is because of this proportion.
So if we speed up the sun, you're saying we're going to speed up time?
We would perceive it as the time is quicker, because we can only establish time to the in relation to the motion. If nothing was moving, we cannot measure time at all. So
we experience day to night, night to day, and there's a duration between the two, and it does change during the course. But that's all we really experienced, and all we did is we figured out a way to designate that duration in hours and minutes and seconds. But does that mean that time exists? I don't think so. Whatever you're really stating time to be, that is. But in that sense, no, I don't think so. It's just, that's all we experience is night to day, day to night. And take away the manufactured world I'm talking about. If you were living out on your own in the wilderness.
The time must exist because everything in physical world which is moving, it takes time to get from one point to another in physical world.
That's just a word we're giving to the natural process. So.
No, it takes your feet. Time didn't do nothing.
I don't know. Good question. Or another one of those unanswerable.
I didn't hear that. He broke for me.
I'm sorry. You said time is required to get from one place to the other. And I said, no, it's your feet that brought you from one place to the other. So the cause of you going from that place to that place is your feet, your muscles. Time had nothing to do with that.
Yes, that's correct. But it's because of causation. Because cause has to be earlier than the effect. Effect must be after. So if we have some earlier and after, therefore the space between earlier and after, it is time.
Yeah, but you said cause and effect, right? So what caused you to go from point A to point B? Was it time or was it your feet?
My feet, but it doesn't matter because the ultimate cause of what I am doing is my will. So you can say that my will is time.
Well, the whole package, your body, like your will, the electrical signals to your brain, we can break that down, right? The fiber of your muscles caused this and that. We can go scientific on it, right? But really, what caused you to go from point A to point B was your body, your feet, not time.
Yes, of course, but it is in time. We say that we are going in some time. So I'm going, for example, 10 kilometers an hour. So this is my measurement.
Yeah, well, since we're on logic, right? Think about it logically. Did you really need time to go from point A to point B?
Yes, because I cannot be in one time in two positions. So moving invokes the time.
Yeah, but who said anything about you being in two places at the same time?
Yes, but so if you cannot be in two places at the same time, so therefore you have to be in one time at the given position, in position A, and at position B, you cannot be at the same time. So you have to be in another time.
Yeah, I guess what you're. I see how you and I've had this conversation many times. We can go
Okay,
around in circles, but
That's why
sorry.
Aristotle's definition is very precise, because he's not talking what it is per se. He's talking that this is measurement. So we are measuring something else. We
so
cannot
time is
measure time.
measurement then. So time is measurement.
Yes, his definition, time is measurement of motion.
So it's
didn't-
not time then. It's
Yes,
motion.
measurement of motion is time. This is the closest definition as we can get. This is not
Oh.
this is not scientific definition, because Aristotle distinguished between scientific and not scientific definition. This is a posteriori definition.
Okay, so it's not an actual definition. Okay, I can accept that, I guess.
It's definition a posteriori. It means it defines because of your action.
Because of your action, therefore time. Now I'll disagree
yes,
with that one.
Yes, it is derived from the effect or from your action. It's not saying what it is time, because you cannot say what it is time, but you can say because of your actions that you can measure motion, and this is time. This is the closest definitions we can get.
Well, I'll disagree with that one then. Because myself, speaking just for myself, I think time is a man-made concept. I think time does not exist. There's no such thing as time. We brought time into existence.
How many times that word time was used in this conversation? It's got to be a spill word.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
It doesn't contradict what I said, because measurement is man-made conception.
Of course it contradicts it. You said time is measurement. Now, measurement is measurement.
Measurement
Time,
is
therefore,
conception.
cannot be measurement.
Measurement is conception. This is conceptual. Measuring something is conceptual.
Yeah, but when we say measure, we know what that means. Right? Measure
Yes.
doesn't mean time. When I say, I can't tell you, measure me at 3 o'clock, right?
This is
Right?
measurement
Or measure me at 3. You're going to tell me, well, what, are you insane? What are you talking about? Measure you
No.
at 3.
We are not measuring distance. We are measuring motion. He said motion, not distance.
Exactly. So motion is time now? Time is motion?
The measurement of this motion is time, not motion itself.
So
Because
measurement of motion is time.
yes, this is his definition.
Okay, I'll disagree with that.
I have to agree, because I don't have better.
Well, because we don't have better doesn't mean we have to agree with something nonsensical. Measurement cannot be time. Distance cannot be time. Right? Time
yes.
is something in of its own.
But this statement is not telling that measurement is time, and not is telling that motion itself, measuring of motion, is time.
So it's still, two things cannot make something else. Measurement is measurement, motion is motion, right? Measuring, I take a ruler, I measure it. Motion is when I move. That does not equal time.
It is conclusion. By measuring time, by measuring motion, we are concluding that there is time.
You are not me, with respect.
Just another thing man created to control the masses, structure their lives, make sure they're where they're supposed to be when they want them to be there. Otherwise, it doesn't exist. Who created the watch? I mean, time is just the motion of the sun and the moon and the stars. And
Yeah,
I don't even
this
like
is
using that word, time.
this is clock. Sun, moon, and
It
stars.
is a
This is
clock.
clock.
It's a clock and a calendar, exactly.
It's written in the Bible. It's written that the sun is for days, moon is for months, and stars are for years. This is clear.
Stars are for seasons, correct? Yeah.
So time is star, moon, sun, right?
This is clock. This is our
Oh,
clock.
sorry to do this to you, but I've been into this for like 30 years, so I may have an upper hand on you on this one and a strong belief. So, yeah.
Clock is measuring is moving. So if our clocks, if the sun was not moving, the moon was not moving, and the stars were not moving, we would be not able to measure time at all.
Okay. Oh, I'm glad you said that. Okay. Let's say I was a magician now, right? Thanos, you know, the guy with the rings. Let's say I was to stop the sun, the moon, and the earth from moving. Would you stop aging?
You would. You
Great
couldn't-
question.
You couldn't live. You couldn't live.
No, but let's say you would have all the amenities. You had generators, you were underground, you had water, you had everything. But we just magically stopped this motion.
No.
Do you think you would stop aging by your logic?
This is red herring. This is impossible example. So why?
Think about it. I think it's a good
I
example.
can think, but it's an impossible example.
Because you're tying motion to time, to aging, to all that. It's in your mind, bro. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Time is not a thing. It's tied to motion. And if you stop motion, therefore you would have to stop time, which would be aging included in that. And that's ridiculous, right?
I didn't say that that time is a thing. What do you mean thing?
Real. Is time real?
Yes, like our thoughts. Our thoughts are real. They are not physical, but they are real. They exist.
Again, you changed the subject. You went to thoughts. I asked you about time.
Time is conception, of course, but it's measured by motion, like Aristotle said.
So it's not real.
Our thoughts are real.
All right. I guess we did enough of this. I guess we're boring everybody.
Yes. You have to prove that thoughts don't exist.
No, because you equated time to thoughts. You have not once defined time for me, sir. I'm sorry, but that's just the way it is.
I didn't equalize these two. I'm doing proportion between. This is not equalizing.
I'm sorry?
I am not equalizing these two things. I am setting proportion.
You're proportionalizing time?
Yeah, this is measurement is measuring something is always we are doing with proportion. Always. Every measurement is setting proportion.
So now time is proportion measurement. See what I mean? How many definitions you gave me so far? Yet not one definition of time yet.
I'm just explaining how measurement works.
Exactly, and not time. You're explaining how measurement works.
Yes, measurement of motion.
But not time.
You cannot measure a thing that this has no spin, has no weight. You cannot measure it directly. You can
exactly,
measure it.
Therefore it doesn't exist.
No, you can measure it by proportion, like density. There is no weight, spin, or mass in density itself. You can only measure it by proportion between volume and weight. Weight you can touch, you can see the measurement of weight, you can see measurement of volume, but you cannot see measurement of density. But by proportion between 1 and second gives you density. The same thing is with time, I think.
So time is density now?
No, it is. I am comparing.
Yeah, but I don't want
This
you
is
to compare.
analogy.
I don't want you to compare. I want you to define time.
I said
Can you
this
do
is
it or not?
impossible. That's why I said that Aristotle's definition is a posteriori definition. It is not a priori definition. It's a posteriori.
Right. No magic words. Can you define time? Yes or no?
Only in this way. This is not scientific definition.
So that's a no.
It depends what you mean definition. This is definition is, for example, definition for a point. This is not scientific definition, and for the line is also not scientific definition.
But you cannot define time, right? Without saying movement, speed, measurement of movement.
Yes.
But time in itself, you cannot define it, right?
Yes.
I can't.
I cannot, of course, because this is not visual, so you can have to set some analogy, because you can name and define directly only things that you can see, touch or weight or whatever.
Anyways, for me, time is not real. Nobody has ever proven to me, shown me, or described it to me in a fashion that, and I've been looking for a long time. Time, right? Yeah.
It's like the same definition that Neil deGrasse uses for gravity. We can use it, we can calculate with it, but what it is, I don't know. Same thing for time and gravity. I mean, there's really you can't pin either one of them down.
I like comparison to density, because I think that it is good analogy. But speaking about gravity is another hijacked word, because gravity means just weight in Latin. Gravity is weight.
Yeah.
So this is not force of gravity, it's just weight.
I have no problem agreeing with that.
Yeah, and listen, I hope I didn't come off too strong with you about the time thing, but
no, I am.
It's one of my things. That's what brought me into this.
Okay. So as I don't know, I cannot touch the time. Only I can rely on this definition, and I think that Aristotle was smarter and wiser than me. So I take this on his authority.
Right. As much as I respect Aristotle, personally, I think no man is infallible. Like everybody can have a fault or make a fault.
Infallible.
I'm not saying he made a fault. I'm just saying, I don't have shadow giants, no matter who they are. I question everything from everybody. That's just the way I am.
Okay, so you have a very, very interesting life.
I guess, yeah.
That's good, because thinking and our mind is the highest thing we have inside us. So it's good that people want to use it.
No, but when you brought up Aristotle and that time is movement, right?
No, measurement of motion. This is
measurement of motion. Yeah. Like, I would respectfully disagree with that, even though it came from Aristotle. I don't want to sound arrogant, but
No,
the
no,
measurement,
okay.
yeah, that's what I just want to.
I am not angry.
And no disrespect to you. It's just my opinion, right? No disrespect to you.
All right, all right.
Are we made up now, guys? Well done.
I think so.
When that time comes up, I shouldn't do that.
Yeah, don't get him on the cat thing as well. I mean, time and
You shouldn't
cats.
think-
If you get
yeah.
Is that because time's catching up with us, Essie?
Time is catching up with us, bro. My apologies.
I hear you.
It's one of those things that sets me off, you know?
Yeah,
Which one?
they inject time into things. And it is useful, right? I think in the circular motion type thing. For revolutions per minute. You know, normally miles per hour.
Yeah, we use it in everyday life for sure. In distances, scheduling, yeah, obviously, yeah.
So it's always combined with a distance, usually.
It has to be. It has to be that way.
Has to be linked to something else. So it's not a thing on its own. Has to be relative to something.
This is time. This is a thing we can think about it because and only think in speculative way.
What Bev said is very interesting. It's not a thing of its own. That's my point exactly.
But I think it must exist like density. You cannot measure or touch density, but we know that density it is in object. So you can say that this object has less density and this object has more density.
Yeah, but we can describe, like we can show it. We can take a bowling ball and the same size styrofoam ball and put them both in water and show one drop to the bottom, right? And one will float.
Yes, of course, of course.
Now, how about time? Can we manipulate time somehow, or
no? It
it
cannot be independent variable.
Oh, I had an argument with somebody yesterday for I don't know how long about that. Yeah, the ballers absolutely say it could be an independent variable.
Yes, yes, I know this argument.
Yeah,
I think Mr. Sensible or someone, he was talking with someone and he was talking that when he was changing his position on the globe, he was doing something. So it was no, it was about location. Sorry, not time, location.
You can change your location and therefore...
Yeah, therefore your location is an independent variable. It is even more stupid than time.
Yeah, I heard that one too, yeah. They say things like we can drop something in a thing, some acid on or some chemical and watch the reaction and time. I go, yeah, but that's not time that causes that. It's the chemical that causes whatever you dropped. Yeah, but time is needed. I go, no, time is not needed. Time didn't cause that. And yeah, it goes round and round and round.
Yeah, I think
it's rather opposite because things need time to do something, not...
Yeah, our conception of time, exactly, yeah, yeah.
I think the way you link density with time is Because density is a something you end up with after some sort of a mathematical equation, which is similar to what
proportion. Yeah, only proportion between volume and weight, and both volume you can measure, and weight you can measure, and proportion between these two gives you density, which you cannot directly measure. You can measure only by proportion.
Yeah, and also with density, they relate it to something too. You have to have a standard, don't you, in order to relate that to. Otherwise, it doesn't really have a meaning.
Yep.
Yes, in ancient world, this was water.
Yeah,
water.
It always is water. Water is the one, right? Now with time as well, time is a function that you have when you relate it to something else. Miles per hour again, and like it's a part of something that you end up with something else again.
Yes, this is for the sun. This is full circle of the sun.
Yeah, but hold on though. But water is a tangible thing to relate to as one. But time cannot be said as equal. Sorry, guys.
No. This is only convention that you assert that water density is one. This is not. This is only the number. It means nothing in reality. It's just only convention.
Yeah, but it's related to water. We all agreed on that. What is time related to?
No, related. We are talking about density of water.
Yeah, but you related time to density.
Yes,
right?
Because you cannot measure density itself. You have to set up proportion between two measurable qualities.
This is good. I never had this thing. Okay, interesting. So what would you relate time to then? If we relate density to water as base one, what then would you relate time to in that manner?
No, I am not relating density only to water. Relating density, I am setting up proportion between volume and weight, and in case of time, we are relating distance and speed. I think that would be description, because the stars are moving in circle during the year, and the sun is doing the circle during one day. So it's going faster. Not a full circle of the star. I mean sidereal rotation. I don't know what.
Interesting. I see what you're saying. Okay, one question: would you relate the aging to time?
Yes, it is related, because everything what is happening is in time. So it takes time, as we say.
Well, that's the Achilles heel in the argument right there. Because back to my argument, if we were to stop motion of these planets, which we call that, we're going into the fantasy now. If we were to stop the sun, moon, and the earth, then therefore you would have to logically say, if you believe that the aging process stops.
No, because for example, if the tree is growing and after 1 year it's grown, it means that it took 365 revolutions of the sun, for example.
So if the sun would stop revolving, the tree would stop growing? If it would have constant sun?
It would, but for other reasons, weather reasons, I'd say. But
okay, fair enough. How about if we would put it underground, under artificial lighting?
Okay, so
what would happen then?
if we can see the sun still, so we can still measure the time.
No, you don't
So-
see the sun.
So you cannot
Listen
measure.
to the scenario. Listen
You
to the
cannot
scenario.
measure. You cannot measure the time then.
I
In
don't
that
think
way.
you're not letting me speak, bro. The scenario is this. You equated time with aging. And then we said time is the motion of the planets, the moon, the earth, and the sun. And I asked you, and then we said about the tree. And then I asked you, if we were to take that tree underground, give it artificial lighting, stop the motion of these bodies by magic, would the tree stop aging? Would the tree stop growing?
No, it would not.
So there goes the theory of it's gone, it's finished then. Can't be that.
No,
You
because you
understand
are
what I'm saying? That
confused.
explanation is out the window. Time and motion is finished. It's over.
I didn't time and motion, yes, because I said measurement of motion.
Yeah,
You
measurement as well. That
No,
argument is
no.
dead. Just died right there.
I disagree. Measurement
Okay.
of motion is not motion itself.
If you're equating measurement of motion with the aging process and time, I just proved that it cannot be possible. Because if you stop this motion, you're not stopping the process of the growth of the tree, which is aging, which you agreed that's what the body is. Your aging it has to do with time.
That's why we
So
have.
I just killed time and motion. Gone, dead. Time is not motion.
But you cannot do that. You cannot stop the stars. You cannot stop the stars, stop the sun. So the clock is going always.
We were doing a hypothetical.
Yes,
of course, we cannot do that.
But while they are all rotating, we have clock above us, so we can measure the motion of the stars. Therefore, we can measure indirectly the time.
Okay, I respectfully disagree. I think I proved that time and motion are not are not dependent of each other. Otherwise, the tree that was underground would stop growing.
But at least they are correlated. I am not establishing cause and effect here. That time causes something to grow or to age or to decay or whatever. I am not saying that.
I agree, but I even proved to you that time cannot be motion as they describe it, as what everybody thinks of right now. Everybody here thinks that time is related to the moon, the sun, and the earth. We all agree on that, right? Even I thought the same thing until I started thinking about this. And I came to the conclusion that time is just simply a man-made thing. It's not motion. It's not counting of motion. It's what we use for all that stuff. But time in and of itself is nothing. It's not a thing. But hey, I could be wrong.
Counting motion is man-made thing also. Any measurement is man-made thing. So
yes, like what's time to a dog? I ask people, and they say, well, the dog waits for you when you come home and it knows when to eat. But then I tell them, okay, go tell your dog to meet you at 3:00 somewhere. You know, I mean, it's
some kind
it's
of
ridiculous,
biological.
Right? Yeah.
Biological clock.
Yeah, biological. Yeah.
For example, your clock, if you, for example, you don't see the stars in your example, imaginary example, but your heart, as long as your heart is beating, you can count your heart beating.
Yeah, a lot of people say that too. Like time is the aging, like you age, right? How old are you? It's by time. And I say no. You can look at it as you have 10,000 or 100,000 heartbeats. Has nothing to do with time. You can tell I've been thinking about this for a long time, right?
Another way I can say that time is space between something is happening, so between phenomenons, so to speak.
Yeah. And also, have you heard about the arrow of time?
Something like that, but I cannot remember what it was.
That was Hawkins, I believe. Time is one way. It could only go one way forward.
Yes, like motion of the stars going one way, and sun. They are circling in one way. They are not going backward.
Can't believe y'all are moving past this.
I think we're boring everybody.
I've been thinking about this a long time.
Are you saying it's time to move on, Rakia?
We've reached the time to move on. I like the way you said that there. I've been thinking. You can tell I've been thinking about this a long time.
At this hour, now I have 12:30 here, so I am stopping to think.
Yeah, it's a fascinating subject.
It's a movement, right? An hour. We base it on the movement of so many whatever, or the sun moving so far. It's 1 hour. We've made that.
Yep.
We've made that measurement, but we didn't make that sun is moving.
Oh, you definitely didn't make the sun move, and you can't stop it either.
Of course.
And it's not accurate with the sky either, because when it's noon, if you look up in the sky, the sun is not going to be directly overhead. So it's really not noon for where you are, but the clock says it's noon.
They switched the time zone.
Yep.
Not even true time. Whatever. See?
I thought you wanted me to stop. I could do this all day, bro. Okay, one more thing, and we'll give it up. The synchronization of what we know as time, right? Because in the past, cities had different times. Didn't have the same time. So one city would have this time, the other, and not like we have them now, right? Time zones. I mean, all kinds of different times.
Yes, because they have noon at different times.
Exactly, at different times. Yeah. So I'm sure a lot of people know this, but those that don't, it's because of train and the scheduling of the stops of the trains, and that's how time got synchronized.
My evening was based on supper time. It was based on street lights coming on. That was supper time.
Or tea time.
Right. Oh.
Yeah. Tea time, supper time.
Yeah.
When the street lights come on, it's supper time. What time is it? I don't know. I know the street lights are on. I better get home and watch that.
I'm hungry. Time to eat. Yeah, that's what brought me into this. That's what made me realize that these shadow giants just make shit up. It's just one guy's idea, and everybody falls in line.
Yeah. What time does your rooster crow?
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, that's things that are old. When you hung out with your grandparents, or an older person will say. What's morning time to you? When the rooster crows. Time to get up, feed the chickens. Start hearing the birds chirp. The sun's rising, right? Birds start chirping.
Now, does that rooster crow because it knows what time it is, or it sees the sun rising?
It feels it. The sun's not even up yet, but it knows, right? The light's approaching.
Yep.
Cover its eyes, it'll still crow. Bet me.
Will it still crow when you cover the eyes? Really?
Absolutely. Every morning. You don't think blind roosters don't crow?
First time I hear that, bro. Interesting.
That's a good one, that.
Stick around, SC. I'm smarter than I look.
Yeah. So now that throws a wrench into my time theory. So how did that rooster know what time it was if it was blind? What time to crow?
It's in it, right?
So it's got to have some sense of time.
Well, it has some sense of its environment, of that thermal energy coming, that magnetic force, field, whatever it's in, right?
Yeah, the heat or something. Yeah.
Oh yeah, they know, man. You know how you keep a rooster from crowing?
No clue?
You don't.
Good one, bro.
Yeah. Chop its head off, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can't keep a duck from flying south, right? Like, just can't. There's things in nature you just can't stop. Can't stop the sun. He just said it. It's natural. Not made by man. You can stop that clock.
Yep.
You can stop only your own personal clock, but this clock, which we have above our heads, you cannot stop.
I think the first clocks used water. Drops of water, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep. Water clocks.
Clocks. Move the sand. They called them hourglasses.
Yeah.
But all types of things, right? How much, when they used lanterns, they used to put fuel oil, whatever they were using in their area. And the time it took that oil to burn, they could judge time by that. They used everything.
How did they know when to stop filling the hourglass?
That's a good question. How much sand to put in there?
How did they know when they started? How did they know when to stop filling the hourglass to equal an hour in time? They were able to wait to determine a wait for an hour of time.
That's a good question. Of course, it was trial and error, but what did they base it on? The time the sun got from this plank of wood to that plank of wood, or something like that? I don't know.
Would they have had an hourglass, or not an hourglass, but a sundial?
A shadow? Yeah, maybe that. Yeah.
You would have had to have had some type of standard to go by. I don't know. Interesting.
I'm sure there's an answer for it.
There were shadow clocks. Even in Bible is mentioned that kind of clock.
You would have to think it's based on the sun, right?
Yes, because it was sundial. King Ahaz, or maybe I am mistaken, was very sick and he was going to die, and God said that as a proof that he will bring him back to health, the sundial shadow will go back 10 degrees or something like that. So from what we know, that this kind of clocks were in use in ancient times among Jews, for example.
Fascinating. I'm going to take a break because it's supper time, guys.
Yes.
Okay.
Very late for me also too.
Take care, dude. I'll talk to you later.
Yeah.
I'll be listening, though. I'll be back.
You must be hungry.
It's time to eat. I saw the lights go on.
I was just going to say that.
For me, time to bed. Good night, all.
Yeah, night.
Night.
Thanks
Night,
for coming.
bro. Peace. Peace and love.
Yeah. Good discussions. I noticed Saragaki didn't really get much chance to go over his logic part of... but I guess that's, again, geometry, logic.
That was the logic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We started off with the logic of the parallel lines, but again, I think it goes to show that these conversations about inconsistencies, I don't know what you call them, illogical statements, non-arguments. It's all linked together, isn't it? The discussions, but that's what it's good about this, is we can talk about it, and there was no heatedness about it. The arguments were good, conversations are good. There's a massive lacking of any globe person to come and talk about any of this stuff. I bet they'd engage with people like Essie on the time and that sort of argument, but with the logic, I'm not so sure. I think not logic nights killed the conversation with the Globers. Stop them from being able to talk to us because they know that they can't get involved in this logical discussion. Although Bebby is going to try. It's a pity he has to do something with his missus on a Tuesday night whenever we do the logic. But he'll be going over it tomorrow. Has anybody got anything else? Because I'm not too sure whether we've gone so far off track that it's a bit hard to get it back now. As he's eating. What does everyone think? Should we end it for tonight? Get rid of it? Stop logic night? I'll come back tomorrow. I think Kevin's going to do we're having another trivium type discussion on the trivium ready for tomorrow. I don't think Raven's with us, but Kevin's going to be around. You going?
This week, you mean, right?
Yeah, this week. Tomorrow.
Because the way you said that, it could have meant something else.
No, I meant just this week.
Yeah.
Kevin will be leading it, and I don't actually know what he's going over. Otherwise, I'll end it with a Buster song. If my mouse starts working, there you go. Buster. And as it's Logos night, end off with Logos. So thanks for watching, everyone. Join us tomorrow. It is Trivium discussion night. Kevin leading the way. See you then.
It's the echo in your brain. You know you can't sustain the misconceptions in your mind. One day you'll see for sure what all of this was for. Then you can leave it all behind. The journey begins. I am the one, yeah, that will show the proof. I am the one, yeah, that is searching for the truth. I am the whispers of the logic in your mind. I am an agent of the Logos. In the beginning was found this thing that cannot speak. It's how we all truly learn. It's only ever attained when one lets go of fear. So don't let wisdom pass you by. The journey begins. I am the one, yeah, that will show the proof. I am the one, yeah, that is searching for the truth. I am the whispers of the logic in your mind. I am an agent of the Logos. It was there all along. How could I never have seen this thing that's danced all around? It wasn't until I left behind the things I believed that I could see things so clear. The journey begins. Become the one, yeah, that will show the proof. Become the one, yeah, that is searching for the truth. Become the whispers of the logic in their mind. Become an agent of the Logos. Become an agent of the Logos. We are the agents of the Logos.